What if the secrets of civilizations long vanished were not lost, but hidden, waiting for someone to uncover them? For centuries, these ancient sites have whispered their mysteries through crumbling walls, weathered stones, and forgotten relics. Each artifact tells a story of ingenuity, belief, and human ambition, stories we are only beginning to understand. What truths lie buried beneath layers of time? What discoveries could challenge everything we thought we knew about our past? Join us as we step into the shadows of history, revealing 3 hours of astonishing archaeological revelations, piece by piece, and let the past speak for itself. On a quiet rise near the ancient city of Taxila, where wind moves softly across broken stone and dry grass, the remains of the Dharamrajika stupa stand in weathered silence. Scattered around the great circular stupa are low rectangular stone platforms, solid, deliberate, and older than they first appear. Their surfaces are worn smooth by centuries of sun and rain, their edges softened but still precise. At first glance, they seem unassuming. Yet these platforms anchor one of the most important religious landscapes of the ancient Gandhara region. Mainstream archaeology places the origins of this site in the 3rd century BCE, during the reign of Emperor Ashoka of the Mauryan Empire. According to inscriptions and Buddhist tradition, Ashoka commissioned stupas across his realm to enshrine relics of the Buddha. The Dharamrajika complex is widely believed to be one of these sacred foundations. Over time, monasteries, chapels, and votive stupas expanded around the central structure, forming a thriving pilgrimage center that endured for centuries. The stone platforms are generally understood as structural bases, foundations for chapels or subsidiary monuments that once surrounded the primary stupa. Their masonry reflects the building practices of Gandharan craftsmen, who combined local stone with Hellenistic influences introduced after Alexander's campaigns in the region. The geometry is careful. The alignments feel intentional. These were not random constructions, but components of a carefully organized sacred complex. And yet, questions linger. Some researchers have noted that certain underlying stone elements may predate the visible Buddhist layers. Taxila itself is far older than the Mauryan Empire. Archaeological strata in the region reveal settlements stretching back to the Achaemenid period and earlier. Could parts of these platforms incorporate materials from pre-Buddhist structures? Were earlier sacred sites absorbed and reinterpreted under new religious frameworks? Across the ancient world, this pattern is not uncommon. New beliefs rising atop the stones of the old. The platform's simplicity adds to their quiet enigma. They are not richly decorated. They do not proclaim their purpose. Instead, they endure as functional forms, stripped of ornament, inviting interpretation. Were they purely architectural? Or did they serve ritual roles, stages for offerings, foundations for relic shrines, or markers of cosmological symbolism embedded in their orientation? More speculative theories occasionally surface in fringe discussions. Some suggest that the site's placement on elevated ground reflects astronomical considerations, aligning with celestial events significant in early Buddhist cosmology. Others wonder whether earlier, now lost traditions assigned the hill a sacred status long before Ashoka's builders arrived. While no firm evidence confirms such claims, the persistence of these ideas reveals something deeper, a recognition that sacred landscapes often carry layered meanings. Taxila was once a crossroads of civilizations: Persian, Greek, Indian, Central Asian. Trade routes converged here, philosophies intertwined, artistic styles merged into what we now call Gandharan culture. In such a place, is it unreasonable to imagine that religious architecture, too, evolved through adaptation and synthesis? The platforms may represent more than structural necessity. They may embody a cultural dialogue carved into stone. As archaeologists continue to study the site, fragments of pottery, coins, and relic chambers help refine the timeline. Yet stone is patient. It does not easily reveal its first purpose. Every excavation answers one question and raises another. Beneath the visible layers of the Dharamrajika complex, what earlier foundations might still lie buried? What rituals unfolded here before recorded history took notice? Standing among the platforms today, with the wind moving across the ruins and distant hills fading into haze, it becomes clear that certainty is rare in places like this. The stones remain, silent witnesses to devotion, transformation, and time itself. And somewhere beneath their weathered surfaces, the earliest chapter of this sacred ground may still be waiting to be uncovered. As we leave the weathered platforms of Taxila behind, the pattern begins to feel familiar. Sacred stone rising from forgotten ground, its purpose partially understood, its deeper meaning still just beyond reach. Thousands of kilometers to the west, on a limestone ridge overlooking the upper Euphrates Valley, another site once stood in quiet defiance of expectation: Nevali Çori. Before it was submerged beneath the waters of the Ataturk Dam in the 1990s, Nevali Çori revealed something extraordinary. The settlement lay on a terrace above the river, where rolling hills soften into fertile plains. To the untrained eye, it might have appeared as little more than stone foundations emerging from the soil. But excavation uncovered a carefully planned Neolithic community dating back to around 8,500 to 8,000 BCE, more than 10,000 years ago. This was a time traditionally associated with small, mobile bands of hunter-gatherers. Agriculture was only beginning to take root. Metal tools did not yet exist. And yet, at the heart of Nevali Çori stood a monumental stone-built structure, unlike anything expected from such an early period. Inside this rectangular building were massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some standing over 3 meters tall. They were set into stone foundations with deliberate precision. Carved into their surfaces were reliefs of animals: snakes, foxes, birds, rendered with stylized but confident lines. Some pillars appeared almost anthropomorphic, suggesting abstract human forms. How did a community without metal tools quarry, transport, and erect stones of such scale? The mainstream explanation is grounded in cooperation. Large groups, organized by shared ritual or belief, could have pooled labor and ingenuity. Stone tools, though primitive by modern standards, are capable of remarkable results in skilled hands. Over time, incremental innovation can produce what seems sudden and revolutionary. Yet Nevali Çori complicates the timeline. The site predates pottery. It belongs to what archaeologists call the pre-pottery Neolithic B period, a phase when permanent settlements were emerging, but monumental ritual architecture was not expected to be so advanced. The sophistication of the stonework and the symbolic complexity implied by the carved pillars suggests an already mature spiritual tradition. Was this the product of gradual evolution, or does it point to an earlier, unseen chapter of cultural development? Some researchers propose that sites like Nevali Çori and others in the region represent the birthplace of organized religion. The theory suggests that shared belief systems may have preceded large-scale agriculture, drawing people together in ritual spaces before they fully committed to farming life. In this view, spirituality was not a byproduct of civilization. It was a catalyst. More speculative interpretations venture further. A few fringe voices suggest that the architectural precision and symbolic depth hint at lost knowledge from an even older, perhaps vanished culture. Others question whether our understanding of Neolithic capabilities has simply underestimated human potential. After all, is it the stones that are mysterious, or our assumptions about the people who raised them? When Nevali Çori was carefully dismantled and relocated before the dam's completion, much of its context was inevitably altered. The original landscape, the river's movement, the surrounding hills, the sky as it appeared 10 millennia ago, is now submerged. What connections between architecture and environment might have been lost beneath the water? Standing before the reconstructed pillars today, one senses both presence and absence. The carvings remain, silent and deliberate. The T-shaped monoliths stand upright, as they once did, holding space for rituals we can only imagine. But the full story, who conceived them, what myths they embodied, what ceremonies unfolded between those stones, remains incomplete. Nevali Çori forces us to reconsider what was possible at the dawn of settled life. It challenges the narrative that complexity must follow slowly behind survival. And it leaves us with a quiet but persistent question. If people 10,000 years ago could shape stone, and perhaps belief itself, with such confidence, what other chapters of human ingenuity still lie hidden, waiting beneath earth or water to be found? If Nevali Çori challenged what we thought early communities were capable of building, our next site asks a quieter but equally unsettling question. What compelled them to build for the dead? On a gentle hillside in Somerset, England, surrounded by open fields and low stone walls, a long grass-covered mound stretches across the landscape. At first glance, it appears natural, just another rise in the countryside shaped by wind and time, but beneath that earth lies intention, geometry, and memory. This is Stony Littleton Long Barrow. Built around 3,500 BCE during the early Neolithic period, Stony Littleton is a chambered tomb constructed more than 5,000 years ago. From the outside, it presents a trapezoidal mound nearly 30 meters long, edged with carefully placed stones. At its wider end stands a stone facade, framing a narrow entrance that leads into darkness. Step inside, and the air changes. A low stone passage extends inward, flanked by side chambers, 3 on each side, built from massive limestone slabs. The craftsmanship is direct, yet deliberate. These stones were not randomly assembled. They were chosen, shaped, and positioned to create a stable, symmetrical interior. At the far end, the passage terminates in a final chamber, forming a cruciform layout. Archaeologists believe this was a communal tomb. Excavations in the 19th century uncovered the remains of multiple individuals, men, women, and children, suggesting that the barrow served generations of a local farming community. The mainstream interpretation is practical and ceremonial, a collective burial space honoring ancestors, reinforcing kinship ties, and anchoring identity to the land. Yet the design invites deeper reflection. The alignment of the entrance roughly faces the midwinter sunrise. On the shortest days of the year, light would have entered the passage, illuminating the interior, however briefly. Was this intentional? Many Neolithic monuments across Britain show evidence of astronomical awareness. But how precise was that knowledge? Was it symbolic, an acknowledgement of seasonal cycles and renewal, or something more cosmologically complex? Constructing Stony Littleton required moving and lifting stones weighing several tons, without metal tools, wheeled vehicles, or modern engineering techniques. The builders relied on stone axes, wooden levers, rope, and coordinated human effort. Experimental archaeology demonstrates that such feats are possible, but possibility does not erase the question of motivation. What belief system justified such labor, generation after generation, for those who had already passed? Some researchers suggest these long barrows were not merely tombs, but sacred architecture designed to transform the dead into ancestors, active participants in the spiritual life of the living. The chambers may have been reopened repeatedly, bones rearranged or curated. Death, in this view, was not an end but a transition into a collective lineage embedded within stone. More speculative voices consider the acoustics of the passage. When standing inside, sound behaves differently. A whisper carries. A low hum resonates against limestone. Could ritual chanting have filled this confined space, creating sensory experiences that reinforced belief? Was the structure designed not only for the dead, but for the living to enter, confront darkness, and emerge changed? And then there is the question of replication. In theory, we could rebuild Stony Littleton today using traditional tools. Engineers understand its structure. Archaeologists understand its timeline. But could we replicate the mindset, the shared worldview that made such a monument necessary? Could a modern community sustain the collective purpose required to shape earth and stone around the idea of ancestral permanence? Across Britain, hundreds of long barrows once dotted the landscape. Many are damaged or erased. Stony Littleton survives as a rare intact example, allowing visitors to step inside a 5,000-year-old chamber and stand where Neolithic mourners once stood. The stones remain cool to the touch. The passage remains narrow, and in the half-light of its interior, time feels less linear, more layered, compressed into limestone and soil. Was this simply a tomb? A calendar in earth and stone? A spiritual threshold between worlds? Or something more complex, woven from beliefs we can no longer fully access? As we move deeper into these ancient landscapes, one thing becomes clear. The true mystery may not be how these monuments were built, but why they were built at all. As we leave the shadowed chambers of Stony Littleton behind, moving across the windswept landscapes of ancient Britain, the sense of continuity and of human determination becomes striking. The Neolithic people who raised stones in Somerset were part of a broader tapestry of communities across the Atlantic seaboard, communities that shared a reverence for the dead, for the horizon, and for forces beyond human comprehension. Our next stop takes us deeper into this mysterious world, to a high plateau where the earth itself seems to hum with the memory of millennia, the Carrowkeel megalithic cemetery. Carrowkeel rises quietly from the blanket of mist that often cloaks the Brickleave Mountains in County Sligo, Ireland. From a distance, the site appears as scattered mounds, low and unassuming against the rolling hills. Yet as one approaches, the true scale and precision of these tombs emerges. Carrowkeel is not a single structure, but a complex. A network of passage tombs perched along limestone ridges, their entrances and cairns carefully aligned across the high plateau. Built roughly between 3,500 and 3,200 BCE, this cemetery is among the earliest examples of megalithic architecture in Ireland. A monumental effort by communities who had no metal tools, no wheeled transport, and limited population density, yet possessed a vision that shaped stone for generations. Walking among the tombs, one is immediately struck by their austerity. The stones themselves are massive, quarried locally and moved into place with painstaking care. The cairns are low but dense, their passageways narrow and deliberate. Inside, the chambers are precise, almost clinical in their construction, side walls leaning gently inward, capstones balanced with exacting stability. Archaeologists suggest that the tombs were communal, housing the remains of multiple individuals over successive generations. Bone fragments and burial goods tell of ritualized interment, careful placement, repeated visitation, and perhaps ceremonies lost to time. Yet Carrowkeel is not merely a cemetery. It is a landscape of intentionality. The placement of each tomb is far from random. Some alignments appear to correspond with solar and lunar events, while others frame distant horizons and valleys. From certain vantage points, one can trace sight lines between cairns, creating a network of visual connections across the plateau. Did the builders intend to map the sky onto the earth, or to guide the living along a path of remembrance and ritual? Or was there a form of social or territorial symbolism embedded in the arrangement, one now impossible for us to fully decode? The scale of effort involved in creating Carrowkeel invites further contemplation. Each tomb required dozens, perhaps hundreds, of people working in coordination over months or years. Stones weighing several tons were transported without wheeled vehicles, levers, or pulleys as we know them. Experimental reconstructions demonstrate that it is feasible, yet difficult, suggesting not only remarkable technical knowledge, but also a profound social structure to organize labor and maintain commitment over time. The very act of building, it seems, may have been as important as the result itself, a ritual of creation intertwined with commemoration. Archaeological investigations have yielded clues, but many questions remain unresolved. Carrowkeel belongs to the Neolithic period, a time when agriculture was establishing roots in Ireland, but when monumental architecture was still extraordinary. Some of the tombs show evidence of sophisticated stoneworking and alignment techniques that seem incongruous with what we know of communities thought to be small and relatively isolated. Were these innovations developed independently, or did ideas travel across vast distances through networks we barely understand? Connections between Carrowkeel and other passage tomb complexes in Ireland and Western Europe hint at shared knowledge, yet the exact mechanisms remain elusive. More speculative considerations emerge when examining the broader context. Some researchers suggest that Carrowkeel may have served dual functions, not merely as a burial ground, but as a ceremonial or cosmological center. The alignment of the tombs with celestial events could imply calendrical significance, potentially linking seasonal observation with ritual activity. Others point to the consistency of chamber design and orientation across multiple sites, raising the question of whether there was a codified architectural knowledge passed between generations, or even between distant communities. There is also the matter of sensation. Standing inside a Carrowkeel passage tomb, the acoustics are remarkable. A low chant or whispered incantation reverberates, echoing through the chamber in ways that modern visitors may find eerie. Could this have been an intentional feature, designed to amplify the presence of ritual, to evoke awe, or to connect participants with forces beyond their perception? Or is it a byproduct of structural necessity, retrospectively imbued with meaning? Perhaps the most enduring enigma is the silence of the dead themselves. Unlike later cemeteries, Carrowkeel leaves few personal artifacts. Where are the stories of individuals interred here? What did these people believe about life, death, and the forces that governed both? The stones endure, weathered and patient, yet the voices of those they commemorate are lost. In their absence, the tombs speak in a language of geometry, placement, and labor, a language that we can interpret but never fully translate. As we gaze across the plateau today, with the wind moving over the cairns and mist curling around the ridges, Carrowkeel challenges our assumptions. Could such precise construction have been undertaken without a profound cultural and spiritual framework guiding each decision? And if so, what does that tell us about human ingenuity and belief in the Neolithic era? Carrowkeel reminds us that ancient landscapes are layered with purpose, some of it visible, some obscured by time. Even when we reconstruct the stones, we reconstruct only part of the story. The rest, the rituals, the beliefs, the intentions that gave rise to such a complex, remains intangible, tantalizing, and unresolved. In the quiet of the high plateau, as the wind carries across limestone and grass, one is left with a persistent question. If people 10,000 years ago could conceive and construct a network of tombs so enduring, so meticulously aligned, what other knowledge, lost or hidden, might still linger beneath the earth, waiting for those patient enough to uncover it? As the mist clears over the windswept hills of Ireland, leaving behind the silent cairns of Carrowkeel, our journey across time and ingenuity carries us further, to a place where stone and earth form not only tombs, but entire cities, complex, monumental, and mysteriously aligned. Across the Atlantic, beneath the high desert sky of the American Southwest, stretches a landscape that speaks of ambition and precision far beyond what one might expect from its prehistoric inhabitants. Chaco Canyon Great Houses. Chaco Canyon sits within the vast, arid basin of northwestern New Mexico, a sun-baked valley framed by cliffs and mesas. From the floor of the canyon, the structures appear as low, rectangular forms, blending into the ochre and red of the surrounding sandstone. But as one approaches, the enormity and sophistication of these ancient constructions becomes apparent. The Great Houses, as archaeologists call them, are massive, multi-storied buildings of stone and adobe, some containing hundreds of rooms and dozens of kivas, circular subterranean chambers used for ritual purposes. Among them, Pueblo Bonito stands as the largest, its crescent-shaped form stretching over 600 feet, with over 600 rooms arranged in a carefully planned layout. The conventional understanding places the height of construction between 850 and 1150 CE during the ancestral Puebloan period. Scholars suggest that these great houses served as administrative, ceremonial, and residential hubs for an extensive regional network of communities. Evidence of trade, including exotic goods such as turquoise, shells, and macaws, points to Chaco as a focal point of economic and spiritual activity. Dendrochronology, the study of tree rings, provides precise construction dates for many of the beams used, revealing not only remarkable planning but also a sophisticated understanding of available resources. Yet, even within this framework of explanation, Chaco Canyon challenges expectations. The masonry is extraordinary. Carefully shaped sandstone blocks, laid in straight, enduring walls, some rising 4 stories high. Timber beams, transported from forests up to 70 miles away, were lifted into place with techniques still debated by modern archaeologists. Roads extend from Chaco to distant settlements, some paved and over 30 feet wide, traversing harsh desert terrain with an alignment so precise that they appear more than mere pathways. They resemble arteries connecting the heart of the canyon to a broader cosmological or political network. And then there is the matter of alignment. Many great houses are positioned with celestial events in mind. Doorways and windows frame solstices and lunar standstills, suggesting an advanced knowledge of astronomy embedded into the very fabric of architecture. How did a pre-industrial society achieve such precision? Were these alignments purely functional, guiding agricultural cycles, or did they hold deeper spiritual significance, creating a cosmic resonance between the structures and the heavens above? Some theories extend even further. Certain researchers propose that Chaco Canyon may have functioned as a ritual observatory, a place where priests or leaders could engage with celestial phenomena in ways that guided communal life. Others point to the acoustic properties of the kivas, where sound seems to carry in unusual patterns, possibly enhancing chants, prayers, or ceremonies. Could the builders have intentionally harnessed the environment, manipulating space, sound, and light to create experiences that modern science struggles to reproduce? And yet, many aspects of Chaco remain unexplained. Despite centuries of excavation and study, we still do not fully understand how these enormous constructions were coordinated. How did a society without draft animals or metal tools organize labor on such a scale, sourcing timber and stone across distances that would challenge even contemporary builders? What social or spiritual imperatives drove thousands of people to invest decades, or even centuries, into creating spaces of such monumental complexity? Moreover, Chaco Canyon was eventually abandoned. By the late 12th century, many great houses were empty, left to the elements. Why did such a thriving hub, rich in architectural skill and regional influence, decline so abruptly? Environmental factors, resource depletion, and social shifts likely played roles, but the precise sequence and human motivations remain unclear. And as we walk through the crumbling walls today, the silence is palpable. A canyon once bustling with ritual, trade, and daily life now echoes only with the wind. Perhaps the most unsettling element of Chaco is the question of replication. Modern engineers and architects can study the masonry, measure the solar alignments, and attempt to reconstruct the great houses. But could we replicate not only the construction, but the social cohesion, the knowledge systems, and the cultural drive that made them possible? Could a contemporary society, faced with the same landscape and tools, recreate these feats without external machinery or modern technology? Standing among the remnants of Chaco Canyon today, one feels the magnitude of human vision and persistence. The stones endure, some perfectly aligned, some toppled by time, yet all whispering the ingenuity of those who shaped them. Every wall, every kiva, every distant road suggests purpose beyond mere shelter. A vision of community, ritual, and cosmic order that defies easy comprehension. As the desert sun dips below the mesas, casting long shadows across the canyon floor, the great houses glow faintly in the waning light. And one question remains, as persistent as the stones themselves. If the ancestral Puebloans could conceive, organize, and execute such architectural and cultural feats over 1,000 years ago, what knowledge, lost, hidden, or simply beyond our understanding, might still be waiting in the stones of Chaco Canyon, or in the minds of those who once called it home?
As the sun sinks behind the mesas of Chaco Canyon, leaving long shadows that stretch across centuries of stone, we turn our gaze across the globe to a place even older, or so some suggest, a site shrouded in both legend and mystery. Adam's Calendar, perched high on the rolling hills of Mpumalanga, South Africa. Unlike the massive great houses of Chaco, Adam's Calendar appears at first as a collection of jagged rocks scattered across grassland, weathered by wind and time. But the more one looks, the more it becomes clear that these stones are not random. They form an arrangement, deliberate in spacing and orientation, that has captivated explorers and researchers for decades. Stretching across a rocky plateau, Adam's Calendar consists of concentric circles, standing stones and flat slabs, some of which are aligned with the rising and setting sun at solstices. Early reports describe it as a stone calendar, a natural clock etched into the earth, potentially able to track the seasons, the movement of celestial bodies, and perhaps even the passing of years. The resemblance to other ancient megalithic sites worldwide, the circles of Britain, the observatories of Mesoamerica, the stone arrangements of Africa, invites comparisons, but the site is singular in its geography and antiquity. The mainstream archaeological perspective is cautious. Skeptics argue that much of the apparent alignment could be coincidental, or that subsequent human activity may have shifted or modified the stones over millennia. Unlike well-documented sites such as Stonehenge or Chaco Canyon, Adam's Calendar lacks comprehensive excavation records, and the cultural context of its builders remains largely speculative. Yet the layout of the stones, the circular forms, paired with elongated slabs at cardinal points, suggests intentionality. Whoever placed them understood orientation, light, shadow, and the rhythms of the sun. Dating the site presents a challenge. Some proponents suggest it could be as much as 75,000 years old, far predating known megalithic construction elsewhere, while mainstream archaeology typically hesitates to assign such an extreme antiquity without concrete evidence. Regardless of the precise age, the placement and scale of the stones evoke questions that extend beyond conventional timelines. If humans, or their ancestors, were arranging massive stones to mark celestial events tens of thousands of years ago, what knowledge or motivations guided them? The terrain itself adds to the enigma. The plateau rises above a valley of rivers and hills, offering expansive views of the horizon. From certain vantage points, sunlight interacts with the stones in ways that appear almost theatrical. Elongated shadows stretch across the slabs, marking the passage of days and seasons. The interplay of geometry, horizon, and illumination hints at an awareness of astronomy, but of a kind whose sophistication is difficult to measure against our own assumptions. Were these alignments purely practical, used to signal agricultural or ritual timings? Or did they encode a deeper cosmology, a philosophical or spiritual understanding of the universe? Speculative interpretations proliferate, though none are universally accepted. Some suggest Adam's calendar served as a sacred site, a place for ritual gathering, meditation, or initiation. Others propose that the structures represent a memory of an older civilization, one whose cultural and technological achievements have left no other trace. Fringe theories even hint at astronomical knowledge far ahead of its time, positing that the site could track long-term cycles, such as precession, though evidence for such claims remains anecdotal. One of the most compelling aspects is the simplicity and precision combined. Unlike towering pyramids or intricately carved monuments, Adam's calendar is deceptively modest. Flat stones, roughly hewn, set into grass and bedrock. Yet the arrangement suggests careful measurement and planning. How did its builders conceptualize space, orientation, and time? How did they ensure alignment with seasonal events without instruments we consider essential today? And if the site is indeed tens of thousands of years old, what does that imply about the continuity of knowledge across prehistoric generations? Adding to the mystery is the connection to human presence in the region. Southern Africa is rich in evidence of early Homo sapiens and their cultural developments. Yet the construction of megalithic structures is not commonly associated with such deep prehistory. Adam's calendar, whether ancient or relatively recent, challenges assumptions about the timeline of human ingenuity, raising questions about what cultural or ritual practices might have driven its creation.
As one walks among the stones today, the wind cutting across the plateau, a strange sense of continuity emerges. Each slab seems to hum with quiet intent, a reminder that humans, or their ancestors, have long sought to measure, understand, and harmonize with the cycles of the heavens. The stones are patient, enduring, and yet they offer no clear answers. They invite observation, reflection, and speculation, leaving much to the imagination. Perhaps the most unsettling question is not how the stones were placed, but why. What compelled people, in this harsh and exposed landscape, to devote effort and planning to an arrangement that connects earth and sky? Was it a practical calendar, a spiritual site, or a memory encoded in stone of a lost civilization? And if these stones are as ancient as some suggest, how much knowledge about human ingenuity and cosmic understanding remains hidden, waiting for those who are patient enough to listen to the whispers of the past? Standing on the plateau today, with the sun casting long shadows across Adam's calendar, it is easy to feel both awe and uncertainty. The stones endure, quiet witnesses to intentions we can only speculate about, and as the light shifts, one is left with a lingering question. What other mysteries, lost to time and memory, might lie hidden in the landscapes of our earliest ancestors, waiting to be uncovered and understood? As the sun dips behind the rolling hills of South Africa, leaving Adam's calendar in soft shadow, our journey through the mysteries of ancient ingenuity carries us northward once more, back across oceans to the windswept moors and granite outcrops of northeast Scotland. Here, the land is rugged and open, dotted with heather and stone, where ancient eyes once watched the horizon with care. It is in this landscape that we encounter one of the most enigmatic monuments of the British Neolithic, the recumbent stone circles of Aberdeenshire. At first glance, a recumbent stone circle seems deceptively simple. A circle of standing stones, weathered and darkened by centuries of wind and rain, surrounds a massive horizontal stone laid low to the ground, the recumbent. This horizontal monolith dominates one side of the circle, flanked by tall, upright stones that seem to guard it. Across the soft Scottish hills, dozens of such circles scatter the terrain, each unique yet sharing a consistent architectural style that suggests deliberate planning and shared cultural knowledge. The circles range from modest assemblies to structures measuring over 20 meters in diameter, and their size and precision invite the observer to consider the effort required to shape, transport, and erect the massive stones using only rudimentary tools. Archaeologists date most of these circles to the late Neolithic and early Bronze Age, roughly 2500 to 2000 BCE. Cremated human remains, pottery fragments, and traces of ritual activity indicate that the circles were not simply decorative, they were sacred spaces, likely tied to burial, commemoration, and ceremonial practice. The recumbent stone itself is almost always aligned along a southwest-northeast axis, often oriented toward the southern moonset. Such astronomical orientation implies a careful observation of the heavens, suggesting that the builders of these circles understood the cycles of the moon and perhaps even its more subtle long-term variations. Yet the more we examine these circles, the more questions arise. How did a relatively small Neolithic population coordinate the transport and placement of these enormous stones? Some recumbent monoliths weigh multiple tons, yet they were moved and positioned with remarkable precision on uneven terrain. The positioning of each flanking stone relative to the recumbent itself appears deliberate, almost ritualistic. But the reasoning remains obscure. Was it merely structural, a way to support and highlight the horizontal stone, or did it hold symbolic significance, representing celestial phenomena, ancestors, or cosmological beliefs lost to time? Speculation grows when one considers the circle's acoustic properties. Standing within a recumbent circle, a voice seems to carry and reverberate differently than in the surrounding landscape. Could this have been intentional, designed to amplify chants, songs, or ritual sounds during ceremonies? Or is it simply an incidental effect of the stone's size and placement? Archaeologists tread carefully here, acknowledging the curiosity while recognizing that definitive conclusions are elusive. Another layer of mystery comes from the broader landscape context. These circles are not isolated. They exist within a complex Neolithic environment dotted with burial cairns, standing stones, and other ceremonial structures. This suggests a landscape of ritual and observation, where the recumbent stone circles served as focal points within a network of sacred sites. The effort required to construct such sites implies shared purpose and social organization, an advanced understanding of labor, resources, and cultural continuity over generations. Yet the circles also challenge our assumptions about the era. The precision of placement, the alignment with lunar events, and the repeated architectural motifs suggest knowledge that extends beyond casual observation. Did the Neolithic people of Aberdeenshire possess a sophisticated understanding of astronomy that we have underestimated? Could the circles have served as more than ceremonial centers, perhaps as calendars, observatories, or mnemonic devices encoding knowledge of seasonal and lunar cycles? The evidence is tantalizing but inconclusive, leaving room for both rigorous interpretation and imaginative inquiry. And then there is the human dimension. The circles were constructed by people whose lives were intimately tied to the land, who likely experienced the rhythms of nature with a sensitivity we can scarcely imagine. Each stone, each placement, carries the imprint of intention, an echo of belief, reverence, and possibly even a desire to communicate across time. Yet we can only glimpse these intentions, filtered through the fog of millennia. Walking among these stones today, one senses both presence and absence. The recumbent stone anchors the circle, silent yet commanding, while the smaller uprights frame the space, guiding the eye and the imagination. The landscape stretches outward, open and austere, and the horizon itself seems to fold into the ritual framework established so long ago. Time feels layered here, the Neolithic past pressing against the present, leaving traces we can measure but not fully comprehend. Perhaps the most compelling enigma of the recumbent stone circles lies in replication. Modern tools, cranes, and technology could, in theory, move similar stones and recreate the patterns. Yet could contemporary builders capture the cultural, spiritual, and observational knowledge that guided these ancient constructions? Could we replicate not only the physical outcome, but the intangible worldview that made such monuments meaningful to their creators? As the Scottish wind moves through the circle, rustling grass and heather, the recumbent stones endure, patient and enigmatic. They testify to human curiosity, ingenuity, and ritual, yet they offer no answers, only questions. Why these alignments? Why this form? Why these stones at this precise place on the earth? And beyond those questions lies the larger mystery. What other knowledge, long hidden and perhaps lost to time, might the Neolithic people of Aberdeenshire have possessed? Knowledge that remains just beyond our reach, whispering through stone and landscape, waiting for those who will listen carefully enough. As the shadows lengthen across the Scottish hills, leaving the recumbent stone circles of Aberdeenshire in quiet repose, our journey carries us further north, to the windswept archipelago of Orkney, where the Neolithic landscape is etched with monuments that speak of extraordinary vision and precision. Here, among low-lying fields and open moorlands, stands Maeshowe, a chambered cairn whose grandeur and subtlety continue to captivate scholars, explorers, and anyone who walks through its solemn passage. From the outside, Maeshowe appears unassuming, a low, grassy mound blending seamlessly into the Orkney terrain. Yet beneath this gentle exterior lies one of the most sophisticated burial monuments of northern Europe, constructed around 2800 BCE. A sense of anticipation builds as one approaches the mound, the long entrance passage cutting into the earth, flanked by carefully laid stones. Though modest in height, the cairn's internal architecture is striking. A central chamber, cruciform in design, lies beyond the passage, its walls and corbelled roof formed from massive, carefully dressed slabs of sandstone. The precision of the stonework suggests deliberate engineering knowledge, as though the builders understood not only weight and balance, but the subtleties of spatial harmony. What first draws attention is the alignment. The entrance faces the setting sun of the winter solstice, allowing light to penetrate the passage and illuminate the rear wall of the chamber for a brief moment each year. Such a feat of astronomical observation implies careful study of the heavens, repeated observation over generations, and a cultural framework that placed extraordinary significance on celestial cycles. Was this alignment purely symbolic, a ritual acknowledgement of seasonal change? Or was it part of a deeper cosmology, a method of marking time, death, and renewal all at once? Excavations have revealed cremated human remains, pottery fragments, and evidence of ritual activity within the chamber. Maeshowe appears primarily as a burial monument, yet its design and execution hint at functions beyond simple interment. The scale and effort required for construction, quarried stones transported across the landscape, passageways precisely aligned, corbelling executed with exacting skill, suggest that this was a site of profound communal importance, demanding cooperation, planning, and perhaps spiritual devotion over decades. The site's allure is deepened by its mysterious inscriptions. In the 12th century CE, Norse visitors left runic carvings on the interior stones, filling the walls with messages, names, and symbols that echo across time. While these were left millennia after Maeshowe's construction, They highlight the enduring impression the monument made on successive generations. Even thousands of years after its creation, the cairn commanded attention, respect, and perhaps awe. Yet even with centuries of study, questions remain. How did Neolithic builders achieve the corbelled roof's stability without modern tools or metal implements? Could a small, pre-industrial community transport and position stones of such weight with such precision? The mathematics inherent in the chamber's proportions and the careful orientation of the passage suggest knowledge that challenges assumptions about the technological capacities of these early people. More speculative theories arise when considering the cairn's broader landscape context. Maeshowe is not isolated. It sits within a complex of Neolithic monuments on the Orkney mainland, including the Ring of Brodgar and the Standing Stones of Stennis. Did the builders conceive of Maeshowe as a single monument, or as part of a vast ceremonial network connecting tomb, observatory, and ritual space across miles of land? Could the cairn have functioned as a temporal anchor for the community, linking human life to the cycles of the sun and the stars? Acoustic phenomena within the chamber add another layer of intrigue. Voices resonate strangely, carrying further and differently than expected. Some researchers have speculated that the cairn's architecture could have enhanced ritual sound, creating a sensory experience that reinforced ceremonies, prayers, or incantations. Was this intentional or simply a byproduct of corbelling and chamber dimensions? We may never know, yet the effect is undeniable. Within the quiet, shadowed passage, one feels a tangible connection to both human intention and the immensity of time. Maeshowe also confronts us with the limits of replication. Today, modern archaeologists can measure angles, weights, and positions. Engineers can simulate the construction process. Yet could we, with our tools and understanding, replicate the subtle alignment with the winter solstice, the corbelled chamber, and the communal energy that must have driven its creation? Could we reproduce not just the physical structure, but the cultural, spiritual, and observational knowledge embedded in its design? Walking through Maeshowe today, with sunlight filtering faintly through the entrance, one is struck by the quiet dialogue between past and present. The cairn endures, a repository of human skill, belief, and observation, yet it remains enigmatic. Every wall, every stone, every shadowed corner speaks of a culture that understood architecture, astronomy, and ritual in ways that continue to challenge our assumptions. Perhaps the most compelling question is not what Maeshowe was, but why it was made in precisely this form, in this location, with such care. What visions of life, death, and cosmic order guided the hands that laid each stone? And beyond the stones themselves, what other knowledge, mathematical, astronomical, spiritual, might remain hidden, buried within Orkney's landscape, awaiting discovery by those willing to search patiently and observe carefully? In the quiet of the Orkney evening, with the cairn standing resolute against wind and time, Maeshowe offers both presence and absence, certainty and mystery. Its stones endure, patient and silent, inviting us to wonder not only about the people who built it, but about the questions they posed to the heavens, and perhaps the answers that remain just out of reach. As the last shadows fade from the mossy stones of Maeshowe and the chill of the Orkney wind lingers in memory, our journey turns southward, far across continents and oceans, to the arid coastal desert of Peru. Here, among the rugged foothills that rise from the Sechura Desert, we encounter a monument that speaks of astronomical precision and human observation on a scale few might anticipate. Chankillo Solar Towers. From a distance, Chankillo presents itself as a subtle ridge, lined with 13 low, evenly spaced towers stretching across the crest of a hill. At first glance, one might mistake these stone structures for simple defensive installations, but the closer one examines them, the more extraordinary they appear. The towers are remarkably uniform in height and width, each placed with meticulous care. Spanning nearly 400 meters along the ridge, they form a linear horizon marker that interacts with the sun in a way that is both deliberate and precise. Archaeologists date the site to around 500 BCE, placing it within the late preclassic period of Andean civilization. Known locally as Chankillo, the complex is now understood to function as a solar observatory, allowing observers to track the sun's movement across the year. By standing at observation points at either end of the ridge, the rising and setting sun aligns with different towers on the horizon throughout the annual cycle. In essence, the 13 towers act as a natural calendar, marking solstices, equinoxes, and intermediate points with extraordinary accuracy. The precision is striking. For a culture without telescopes, clocks, or written records, the builders of Chankillo achieved astronomical observation with a simplicity and elegance that continues to astonish modern researchers. Each tower's placement corresponds to the sun's changing position at different times of the year, a system that allowed agricultural planning, ritual scheduling, and perhaps even cosmological insight. How did these ancient observers determine these alignments? What knowledge of geometry, horizon tracking, and long-term observation guided their efforts? The site's context deepens the intrigue. Chankillo is not merely a linear arrangement of stones. It sits within a larger complex of ceremonial and administrative structures, including residential areas, plazas, and pathways. This suggests that the towers were part of a broader societal framework, integrated into daily life, governance, and ritual. The inhabitants must have devoted considerable time and labor to build and maintain the observatory, implying a social organization capable of coordinating large-scale projects and valuing knowledge of the sky with remarkable foresight. Yet, many questions remain. While the solar alignments are clear, the exact cultural purpose of Chankillo is less certain. Was it purely utilitarian, designed to schedule planting and harvest cycles? Or did it serve as a sacred space, linking human activity to the rhythms of the cosmos? Some researchers suggest that ceremonial practices occurred at the towers themselves or at nearby structures, with priests or astronomer priests interpreting the sun's position as a guide for both spiritual and temporal matters. If so, the solar towers become more than an observatory. They are a bridge between heaven and earth, measurement and meaning. Speculative theories also emerge from the site's precision. Could the 13 towers represent a codified system of knowledge, passed through generations? Some suggest that the solar horizon alignment could track not only daily and seasonal cycles, but also longer astronomical phenomena, though the evidence is less clear. Still, the existence of such a precise solar calendar centuries before mechanical timekeeping invites reflection. What other methods of observation and record-keeping might these people have employed that we cannot now detect? Chankillo also challenges our understanding of replication. Modern engineers can map the horizon, model the sun's trajectory, and even recreate the structure digitally. But could we reproduce the same observational system with only rudimentary tools, trial and error, and a deep familiarity with the landscape and sky? Could a contemporary team replicate not merely the physical towers, but the cumulative knowledge, patience, and skill of the people who observed, measured, and memorialized the sun's path with such meticulous care? The answer seems elusive. The desert wind sweeps across the ridge today, carrying heat and dust over the worn stones. Standing at the observation points, one senses both permanence and fragility. Permanence in the enduring stone towers, fragility in the knowledge and ritual that must have surrounded them, largely lost to time. Each alignment, each shadow, each subtle shift of sunlight across the towers evokes a connection to the cosmos that modern observation can measure but not fully inhabit. Perhaps the most compelling question is not how the towers were built, But why? Why did a culture invest labor, precision, and communal effort into a series of stone markers that track the sun so precisely? Was it survival, spirituality, societal control, or a combination of all three? And beyond that, what other knowledge, astronomical, ritualistic, or practical, remains hidden, encoded in the stones, the horizons, and the ancient desert landscape, waiting for someone perceptive enough to read it? As the sun sets behind the 13 towers, casting elongated shadows across the ridge, Chankillo endures as both a monument and a question. It invites us to consider not only the ingenuity of those who came before, but the limits of our understanding. The towers stand patient and silent, a calendar etched into the earth, a challenge to our assumptions, and a reminder that some mysteries, no matter how precisely marked, remain impossible to fully replicate or comprehend. As the golden light fades over the arid ridges of Peru, leaving the Chankillo solar towers cast in long, precise shadows, our exploration of human ingenuity shifts once again, this time to the heart of Anatolia, where a volcanic landscape has been sculpted by both nature and human hands into something extraordinary, almost otherworldly. Here, amid deep valleys and towering rock formations, we encounter the Göreme rock structures, a region where soft volcanic tuff has been transformed into dwellings, sanctuaries, and entire subterranean cities, carved with patience and purpose over millennia. From a distance, Göreme appears as a landscape of alien spires and undulating ridges. These fairy chimneys, as they are sometimes called, rise abruptly from the valleys, their conical forms weathered by wind and rain into fantastical silhouettes. At first glance, one might assume these were purely natural creations, sculpted solely by geological forces. Yet closer inspection reveals human intervention. Windows, doorways, and staircases carved directly into the rock, intricate tunnels linking chambers, and cliffside churches adorned with faded frescoes. It is a seamless blending of the natural and the artificial, a landscape where geology and ingenuity intertwine. Archaeological evidence suggests that humans began occupying the Göreme region as early as the Hittite period, around the 2nd millennium BCE, with monastic settlements flourishing during the Byzantine era from roughly the 4th to 13th centuries CE. Entire communities carved homes, storage areas, and churches directly into volcanic rock, adapting to the landscape in a way that seems at once practical and visionary. The soft tuff allowed for complex underground construction, including multi-level dwellings and ventilation systems sophisticated enough to sustain long-term habitation. Yet Göreme is more than a testament to human adaptation. It presents enigmas that continue to challenge scholars. How did these communities conceptualize space, light, and movement when carving such extensive networks into solid rock? The interiors are often labyrinthine, with interconnected tunnels leading to hidden rooms, communal spaces, and sacred areas. Some structures extend several stories underground, requiring careful planning to avoid collapse, suggesting a knowledge of architecture and geology not commonly attributed to early medieval or even late ancient societies. The placement of these rock structures across valleys and ridges also invites speculation. Many appear to align with vantage points, horizons, or celestial events, with certain windows and openings oriented to capture sunlight at specific times of year. Could these alignments have served ceremonial purposes, marking solstices, equinoxes, or ritual cycles? Or were they practical, maximizing light and warmth in a harsh climate? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between, where the spiritual and functional converge in ways we cannot fully reconstruct. Inside some of the cliffside churches, faded frescoes hint at a sophisticated symbolic culture. Scenes of religious figures, animals, and abstract motifs appear with surprising consistency across multiple sites. Were these images purely devotional, or did they encode knowledge, astronomical, calendrical, or even social. Some researchers suggest that monastic communities may have preserved older traditions, carving and painting in ways that connected spiritual insight with careful observation of the natural and celestial worlds. There is also the question of replication. Modern engineers and masons can study the rock, analyze the structural integrity, and even attempt to recreate tunnels and chambers. Yet could contemporary builders, without the aid of modern machinery, replicate the scale, precision, and ingenuity of these settlements? Could we reproduce not only the physical structures but the social, religious, and practical knowledge that guided their creation over centuries? The answer seems improbable, highlighting a human ingenuity uniquely adapted to place, materials, and necessity. Göreme also prompts reflection on human resilience and adaptation. Carved into a landscape of volcanic cones, the structures required foresight, coordination, and a willingness to inhabit the unknown. Ventilation shafts, water storage systems, and communal living areas indicate sophisticated understanding of environmental management. Yet despite this practicality, there is artistry in every incision, a sense that beauty and function were inseparable. The landscape becomes both canvas and tool, shaped with intention that defies modern assumptions about prehistoric and medieval construction techniques. Walking among the valleys today, the air cool and quiet, one senses the layered history of human presence. Children playing along narrow ledges, monks in meditation, families tending subterranean rooms, all long vanished, leaving only stone and echo. The chimneys and tunnels seem to hold a memory of life adapted to challenge, belief, and ingenuity, yet also a reminder of mystery. How much knowledge of the past remains hidden in the rocks, unrecorded in text, surviving only in form, orientation, and subtlety of design? Perhaps the most compelling question of Göreme is not how the people carved the structures, but why? Why invest generations of labor into a landscape that was already dramatic, sculpting dwellings, churches, and entire subterranean cities into the earth itself? Was it devotion, survival, artistry, or a combination? And beyond that, what subtle insights, engineering, environmental, spiritual, might we recover if we look carefully at the orientation of tunnels, the thickness of walls, and the placement of windows? As the sun sets over the Göreme valleys, bathing the fairy chimneys in warm, fading light, one is struck by both wonder and humility. The rock structures endure, patient and silent, speaking of human vision, perseverance, and observation. They challenge assumptions about what is possible with limited tools, demanding that we recognize ingenuity shaped by necessity, faith, and keen attention to the world around us. And as the shadows stretch long across stone and earth, we are left with a question that lingers, whispering through the valleys. What other knowledge, hidden in plain sight and carved into the enduring rock, might remain, waiting for the patient eye to uncover it? As the shadows of the Göreme rock structures fade into the Anatolian dusk, our journey turns once more, this time across the Mediterranean, to an island steeped in mystery and antiquity, Malta. Here, amid sun-baked fields and rolling limestone hills, lie the silent remnants of one of the earliest and most enigmatic megalithic temples in Europe, Skorba. The site is modest compared to later temples on the island, yet within its weathered stones lies a story of human innovation, ritual, and knowledge that challenges our assumptions about prehistoric Europe. At first glance, Skorba appears as a scattering of stones and low walls, partially buried beneath centuries of sediment and human activity. Yet careful excavation reveals the deliberate nature of its construction. Semicircular apses, carefully laid orthostats, and the remains of an internal layout that suggests both practical and ceremonial use. The alignment of the entrances and chambers hints at an awareness of the solar cycle, with openings oriented toward the rising sun at solstices, echoing a theme we have encountered across millennia and continents, from Chankillo to Göreme. Archaeologists date Skorba to around 3600 BCE, placing it at the dawn of Malta's temple-building culture. It is considered a predecessor to the more famous megalithic temples such as Hagar-Chim and Menajdra, yet its significance is profound. It represents an early stage of societal organization, architectural planning, and ritual expression. Layers of occupation at the site indicate repeated construction, renovation, and use, suggesting continuity of cultural knowledge over generations. The precision in stone placement, especially given the tools available at the time, speaks to a community capable of remarkable coordination and technical understanding. The temple's interiors hint at complex ritual activity. Evidence of altars, hearths, and carefully positioned stones suggests ceremonial practices, likely tied to fertility, agriculture, or cosmology. Pottery fragments, figurines, and ritual deposits offer glimpses into the spiritual life of its builders, though much remains opaque. How did these early Maltese communities conceptualize space, ritual, and the cosmos? How did they ensure alignment with celestial events, using only observation and simple tools? The questions highlight the intersection of engineering, astronomy, and spirituality in a period often underestimated in its sophistication. Skorba also presents intriguing enigmas about labor and logistics. The stones used, while smaller than later megaliths, were nonetheless quarried, shaped, and transported with care. The semicircular apses suggest a sophisticated understanding of geometry and stability, allowing the structure to endure thousands of years of weathering. Could these techniques have been taught orally, passed down through generations? And if so, what other knowledge, astronomical, mathematical, or ritualistic, might have been encoded within the architecture itself? Comparisons with later Maltese temples only deepen the mystery. Over the centuries, temple construction evolved dramatically, with larger stones, more elaborate layouts, and increasingly precise alignments. Skorba, however, is an early experiment, smaller, simpler, yet remarkably functional. It invites reflection on the process of cultural innovation, how knowledge accumulates, spreads, and becomes encoded in architecture. Could it be that Skorba represents a moment when human ingenuity, observation of the heavens, and ritual intent converged for the first time on Malta, setting the stage for monuments that would confound visitors millennia later? Speculative interpretations add further layers. Some researchers suggest that Skorba, like other megalithic sites worldwide, may have served as a kind of observatory, marking seasonal changes for agricultural or ceremonial purposes. Others focus on its social function. The coordination of labor and materials required implies a hierarchical or cooperative society capable of mobilizing its resources toward long-term cultural goals. Yet beyond these plausible explanations lies the tantalizing unknown. Crave. The act of replication poses its own challenge. Modern archaeologists can measure, map, and even simulate Skorba, yet could contemporary builders recreate it using only the tools and methods available to its Neolithic creators? And even if we could reconstruct the physical structure, could we capture the cultural context, the spiritual significance, and the observational precision that imbued each stone with purpose? Skorba, like many ancient monuments, tests not only technical skill but the integration of knowledge, belief, and social coordination. Walking among the remains today, with the Mediterranean sun casting long shadows across the limestone, one feels the presence of countless generations who shaped this lanol there be symbolic or mathematical knowledge embedded in the structure that we have yet to decode. The act of replication poses its own challenge. Modern archaeologists can measure, map, and even simulate Skorba. Yet could contemporary builders recreate it using only the tools and methods available to its Neolithic creators? And even if we could reconstruct the physical structure, could we capture the cultural context, the spiritual significance, and the observational precision that imbued each stone with purpose? Skorba, like many ancient monuments, tests not only technical skill but the integration of knowledge, belief, and social coordination. Walking among the remains today, with the Mediterranean sun casting long shadows across the limestone, one feels the presence of countless generations who shaped this landscape. The walls, low though they are, speak of labor, observation, and intention. The site is quiet, yet resonant, a reminder that even in modest form, early humans were capable of architectural feats and astronomical insight that challenge our expectations. Perhaps the most profound question is not how Skorba was built, but why? Why did a community invest time, energy, and knowledge in a structure that aligns with celestial events, supports ritual activity, and endures millennia later? Was it devotion, necessity, a desire to mark time, or a combination of all three? And beyond that, what other insights, hidden in the stones, the layout, or the landscape itself, might remain obscured, waiting for careful observation and imagination to bring them to light? As the wind moves across the Maltese hills, rustling grass and the occasional bird taking flight, Skorba stands as both monument and mystery. It endures, patient and silent, a testament to human ingenuity, adaptation, and wonder. And in its quiet presence, it invites us to consider not only the people who built it, but the knowledge and questions that have been lost or remain hidden, reminding us that even the simplest stones can contain mysteries impossible to fully replicate or understand. As the Mediterranean wind whispers over the low walls of Skorba, leaving its ancient stones bathed in the amber glow of evening, our exploration of human ingenuity moves now to the towering Andes of South America. Here, high above the Urubamba River, in a landscape of steep terraces and narrow valleys, we encounter the enigmatic constructions of Ollantaytambo wall blocks. Massive stones carved and fitted with astonishing precision, forming walls that defy easy explanation and challenge our understanding of pre-Columbian engineering. From a distance, the terraced citadel appears as a harmonious blend of mountain and masonry. Yet as one draws closer, the walls of finely cut stone reveal their true complexity. The blocks are immense, some weighing tens of tons, meticulously shaped to interlock with one another without mortar. Each stone's face is smooth, its edges sharp, and the gaps between adjacent blocks are so narrow that even a knife blade cannot be inserted. The precision is extraordinary, as though the builders possessed knowledge of geometry, leverage, and spatial manipulation that rivals modern construction techniques. Scholars date the main constructions at Ollantaytambo to the Inca period, around the 15th century CE, although some stones may have been quarried and positioned on earlier foundations. The site served as a fortress, administrative center, and ceremonial complex, strategically positioned to control access to the sacred valley. The terraces, plazas, and water channels illustrate sophisticated urban planning, but it is the megalithic walls that continue to astonish visitors and researchers alike. The question of transportation and placement looms large. How were stones weighing tens of tons moved uphill across rugged terrain without wheeled vehicles or draft animals capable of handling such weight? Ramp systems, levers, and human labor undoubtedly played a role, but the flawless fitting of each block suggests a mastery of stone shaping and assembly that seems nearly impossible to replicate even today. Could the builders have used techniques now lost to time, or perhaps employed methods we have yet to imagine? Equally compelling is the precision with which some blocks appear to be cut to fit irregular shapes, creating a jigsaw-like pattern that resists shifting even in the face of earthquakes, a common occurrence in this region. This polygonal masonry, combined with the massive scale of the stones, implies not only skill but also sophisticated knowledge of physics and material properties. Was this purely functional, intended to prevent structural failure, or was there a symbolic aspect as well, an expression of power, divine authority, or cosmic order encoded in stone? The alignment and positioning of the walls themselves invite further speculation. Certain walls and terraces appear to follow natural contours of the mountains, while others seem to correspond with astronomical observations or lines of sight to other sacred sites. Could these alignments have served ritual purposes, marking solstices or solstitial events, or were they intended to communicate territorial and spiritual dominion across the valley? The evidence is tantalizing but incomplete, leaving room for interpretation and, perhaps, wonder. Modern attempts to replicate the construction techniques have proven challenging. Even with cranes, hydraulics, and digital modeling, moving stones of comparable size and fitting them with the same precision remains a formidable task. This raises a profound question. While we can replicate the physical outcome, can we truly capture the knowledge, skill, and societal organization that enabled the original builders to achieve such feats? What cultural and technical wisdom, lost to the centuries, guided their hands? Furthermore, Ollantaytambo sits within a broader landscape of engineered marvels, from terraces and irrigation channels to nearby ceremonial sites. The integration of megalithic construction with agricultural, defensive, and religious infrastructure speaks to a holistic understanding of the environment, a deliberate shaping of both landscape and society. Yet, despite extensive study, many details remain elusive. The precise methods of stone extraction, transport, and placement, the timing and coordination of labor, and the cultural logic behind the specific arrangements of blocks and walls. Walking along the ancient terraces today, one feels a palpable sense of human ingenuity and determination. The walls rise vertically, imposing yet harmonious with the contours of the mountains, and the precision of each block conveys both technical mastery and artistic sensibility. The craftsmanship is awe-inspiring, a reminder that human capacity for innovation is often far greater than we allow ourselves to imagine. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of Ollantaytambo is not the stones themselves, but the questions they provoke. How much knowledge about construction, organization, and observation was encoded in these walls, now lost to time? Could future discoveries, perhaps in quarries, unfinished blocks, or oral histories, reveal insights into techniques that modern science struggles to explain? And even more intriguingly, could there be principles of design, measurement, and cosmic awareness embedded in the walls that we have yet to perceive? As the Andean sun dips behind distant peaks, casting long shadows across the citadel, the Ollantaytambo walls stand as silent witnesses to human skill, persistence, and imagination. They endure, patient and enigmatic, a testament to the ingenuity of those who built them, and a challenge to those who seek to understand. And as we walk among these immense stones, we are left with a question that reverberates through time. What hidden knowledge allowed the hands of the past to achieve the impossible, and what might still be waiting for discovery, quietly etched into rock and memory? As the sun sets behind the towering Andes, casting Ollantaytambo's massive walls in long amber shadows, we leave behind the calculated precision of the Inca and turn our journey northwest, across seas and landscapes, to the windswept hills of the Iberian Peninsula. Here, overlooking the Atlantic coastline, stands a settlement whose stone ramparts and terraced dwellings whisper of human ingenuity and societal organization far earlier than written records suggest: Castro de Santa Trega. Perched atop Mount Santa Trega, the site commands a sweeping view of the Minho River estuary below, where water meets land in a patchwork of marshes, cliffs, and fertile valleys. From afar, the ruins appear as weathered terraces and circular foundations, the skeletal remains of an ancient citadel. Yet as one moves closer, the deliberate design becomes apparent. Concentric walls, stepped platforms, and interlocking dwellings reveal a society capable of careful planning, environmental adaptation, and sustained community life. The settlement seems to mirror the contours of the mountain itself, as though the builders were guided as much by intuition and landscape as by design. Castro de Santa Trega belongs to the Castro culture, which flourished in northwestern Iberia from the late Bronze Age into the early Iron Age, approximately between 1000 BCE and 100 CE. The term Castro refers to fortified hilltop settlements, and Santa Trega is among the most complete and studied examples. Archaeologists have documented circular dwellings with stone foundations and wattle and daub walls, narrow streets, public spaces, and defensive walls that spiral along the slope. Yet what makes this site especially fascinating is the precision with which the community harmonized functionality, defense, and social organization. Each dwelling seems carefully oriented, sometimes clustered to form intimate neighborhoods, sometimes opening onto larger plazas, suggesting a conscious balance between private and communal life. The stones themselves provoke wonder. Massive boulders were shaped, positioned, and stacked to create terraces, walls, and platforms, resisting erosion while accommodating the uneven terrain. The weight, precision, and placement of some stones, especially in retaining walls, pose questions about the techniques and tools available to a pre-Roman society. How did they manipulate such material with limited metallurgy? How did they transport, lift, and secure these stones along steep slopes without mechanical assistance? Even today, these structures challenge engineers and archaeologists attempting to model ancient construction methods. Beyond their physical achievement, the Castro's location and alignment suggest a deep understanding of landscape and observation. From certain vantage points, observers could survey the estuary, monitor access routes, and perhaps even track celestial events. Was the placement of dwellings and walls purely defensive, or did it also serve symbolic or ritual purposes, anchoring the community in a cosmic or environmental framework? Some researchers speculate that hilltop castros functioned as markers of territorial control, spiritual centers, or observational platforms, blending practicality with ceremony in ways that remain largely speculative. Artifacts recovered from Santa Trega add further depth. Pottery fragments, metal tools, figurines, and domestic objects hint at daily life and ritual practice. While the materials themselves are not unusual for the period, the uniformity and spatial organization within the settlement suggest a highly coordinated culture with shared norms and values. Could the careful clustering of dwellings reflect social hierarchies, family groupings, or spiritual observances? And if so, what methods of planning and oral knowledge were used to transmit these patterns across generations? Speculative considerations deepen when examining the citadel's integration with the natural environment. The terraces follow natural contours, reducing erosion and optimizing water management. Could the placement of walls, dwellings, and streets also encode information, astronomical, topographical, or symbolic, lost to us today? Might the builders have used natural landmarks, sun positions, or seasonal observation points to guide the organization of their community? These questions, though unprovable, highlight the intersection of observation, labor, and cognition embedded in the site. Modern attempts to replicate such construction reveal another layer of mystery. While it is possible to study stonework and terraces, the effort, coordination, and knowledge required to reproduce an entire hilltop settlement along steep slopes seems daunting. Could a contemporary team, using only Bronze Age tools and local materials, recreate a functioning castro with the same precision, social coherence, and structural integrity? Even if technically feasible, Would modern planners achieve the integration of environment, defense, and ritual embedded naturally in Santa Trega's layout? The answer underscores the unique ingenuity of the original builders. Walking through the remnants of Santa Trega today, one senses the human presence across centuries. Families moving along narrow stone paths, craftspeople shaping pottery or metal, children playing in terraces, and elders observing the estuary below. The circular homes, once thatched, now leave only stone rings, yet their form conveys warmth, protection, and social cohesion. The walls speak of defense, but also of community, of people attuned to the land and their place within it. Perhaps the most haunting question is not how the Castro was built, but why it was constructed exactly in this way. Why invest labor in shaping terraces, walls, and dwellings with such precision on a windswept hilltop? Was it survival, status, spiritual devotion, or all three? And what knowledge, practical, symbolic, or astronomical, might remain hidden in the patterns of streets, the orientation of homes, or the placement of walls? As the Atlantic wind sweeps across the slopes, carrying the scent of sea and stone, Castro de Santa Trega endures, patient and enigmatic. It is at once fortress, village, and monument, a testament to human ingenuity, observation, and resilience. And in its quiet presence, it challenges us to recognize that some knowledge, embedded in landscape and stone, may remain forever beyond full replication, leaving only questions for those willing to walk among the ruins, observe carefully, and wonder at the mysteries that endure across millennia. As the Atlantic winds fade over the rugged hills of Galicia, leaving Castro de Santa Trega's terraces and ramparts in quiet repose, our journey of human ingenuity and architectural mystery leads us northward, across the Irish Sea, to the misted valleys of South Wales. Here, tucked among gently rolling fields near the village of Tinkinswood, lies one of the earliest and most enigmatic burial chambers in Britain, Tinkinswood Burial Chamber. At first glance, it appears modest, a grassy mound punctuated by a single colossal capstone. But closer examination reveals a structure that challenges our understanding of Neolithic engineering, social organization, and ritual practice. From the moment you approach Tinkinswood, the scale of the burial chamber is arresting. The capstone alone measures approximately 6 meters long, 2.5 meters wide, and an astonishing 1.2 meters thick, weighing somewhere between 40 and 50 tons. Resting atop smaller upright stones, this single monolith dominates the landscape, its edges roughly squared yet perfectly balanced atop its supporting megaliths. Standing beneath it, one feels dwarfed, overwhelmed by both the stone's size and the audacity of those who lifted it into place without modern machinery. How did Neolithic people quarry, transport, and elevate such a massive stone with tools made of wood, stone, and bone? Archaeologists date Tinkinswood to roughly 6,000 years ago, placing it in the late Neolithic period. The chamber was originally covered by a cairn or earthen mound, forming a tomb that served as both a burial site and a ceremonial focal point for the surrounding community. Excavations have revealed human remains, cremated and inhumed, and pottery fragments, hinting at ritualized interment and communal activity. Yet the specifics of those rituals remain tantalizingly obscure. What prompted a community to invest extraordinary effort into a singularly massive capstone? And why select this particular site, overlooking the surrounding Vale of Glamorgan, for such a monumental undertaking? The construction of Tinkinswood invites endless speculation. The uprights supporting the capstone are carefully placed, yet the sheer size and weight of the stone suggest sophisticated understanding of leverage, fulcrum points, and perhaps even collective choreography. How many people were required to move and position the stone? Did they employ earthen ramps, wooden rollers, or ropes woven from plant fibers? Or did they utilize techniques lost to history, methods so effective that the Neolithic builders left no direct record? The ingenuity required for such a feat suggests a society with not only physical capability, but also a highly developed system of communication, planning, and coordination. But Tinkinswood is not merely a technical marvel, it is also an enigmatic statement of intention. The chamber's orientation, aligned roughly east-west, may indicate awareness of solar cycles, hinting at an integration of celestial observation with mortuary practice. Was the rising sun at solstice or equinox meant to illuminate the chamber in a particular way? Or was the orientation more symbolic, marking the passage of life and death, light and darkness? The questions are compelling precisely because the evidence is ambiguous, leaving interpretation open to both scientific observation and imaginative reasoning. Furthermore, Tinkinswood exists within a landscape of other Neolithic sites, including long barrows and stone circles, suggesting it was part of a broader network of ritual and social significance. Could its placement have served not only local ceremonial needs, but also a wider regional function, an anchor point in a prehistoric cultural map, signaling territory, ancestry, or spiritual alignment? And if so, what knowledge of the landscape, astronomy, and social cohesion underpinned its construction and use? Modern attempts to replicate the capstone placement, even on a smaller scale, underscore the challenge. While engineers can model lifting techniques and simulate mechanical leverage, the precise combination of labor, timing, coordination, and environmental adaptation seems almost impossible to reproduce without extensive trial and error, ingenuity, and intimate familiarity with the landscape. Could a contemporary team, using only Neolithic-style tools, lift and position a stone of this size with the same apparent ease and permanence? The question emphasizes not only technical skill, but also the lost cultural context, the social, ritual, and communal forces that enabled such construction. The interplay of mystery and mastery at Tinkinswood extends to its artistic and symbolic aspects as well. Unlike later Neolithic sites adorned with carved motifs or megalithic art, Tinkinswood is stark, minimalistic, a raw testament to scale and placement rather than decoration. Could this simplicity be deliberate, focusing attention on the sheer physicality of the monument and the communal effort it represented? Or was it intended as a silent symbol of permanence, endurance, and the human desire to confront mortality with monumental effort? As one walks away from the burial chamber today, across the grassy fields of the Vale of Glamorgan, the enormity of the capstone lingers in memory. It is a reminder that human ambition, ingenuity, and ritual practice can intersect in ways that transcend time, leaving structures that challenge comprehension. The mystery of Tinkinswood is not limited to the methods of construction. It extends to the purpose, the social organization, and the worldview that allowed a community of early farmers to erect a stone of unparalleled weight and balance, imbued with meaning and significance. Perhaps the most compelling question Tinkinswood presents is this: beyond the physical achievement, what knowledge, observation, and cultural insight were embedded in its construction, now inaccessible to us? What did the Neolithic builders know about the sky, the landscape, and human society that allowed them to achieve the impossible? And what other mysteries, encoded in orientation, alignment, or the subtle contours of the mound, remain hidden, awaiting the careful observer to decode their silent messages? As evening light softens over the fields and the capstone's shadow stretches long across the landscape, Tinkinswood endures, patient, monumental, and enigmatic. It stands as a testament to human skill, imagination, and persistence, a reminder that some knowledge may never be fully replicated, and some mysteries, no matter how carefully studied, remain tantalizingly beyond reach, waiting for those who dare to question, wonder, and explore. As the morning mist lifts from the grassy slopes of South Wales, leaving Tinkinswood burial chamber bathed in a soft, ethereal light, our journey of human ingenuity carries us further south and west, across deserts and savannas, to a landscape where stone rises in quiet rhythm across the plains of West Africa. Here, in the Senegambia region, countless megaliths form patterns that have stood for millennia, a vast and largely unexplained network of circles, alignments, and tumuli, the stone circles of Senegambia. Approaching the site, the sheer scale of the phenomenon becomes immediately apparent. Over 1,000 stone circles are scattered across an expanse of roughly 30,000 square kilometers, each composed of granite or laterite boulders ranging from modest foot-high stones to towering monoliths over 2 meters tall. From a distance, the formations appear as clusters of irregular shapes, yet closer inspection reveals intentionality, concentric rings, carefully spaced orthostats, and central stones that seem deliberately positioned, hinting at a sophistication that defies expectations for prehistoric West African societies. Archaeologists estimate that the Senegambian stone circles date from between the 3rd century BCE and the 16th century CE, suggesting a remarkable continuity of cultural practice. These were not isolated monuments, but part of a network spanning generations, linking communities across vast distances. Excavations within some circles have revealed human remains, cremated and inhumed, alongside pottery, iron implements, and ornaments, suggesting the circles served as both burial grounds and ceremonial centers. Yet the precise purpose of the vast majority of these stones remains elusive, leaving ample room for speculation and wonder. One of the most striking features is the sheer effort required to construct these circles. Many stones were quarried from considerable distances, transported across uneven terrain, and then erected with precision. How did these early societies, without wheeled vehicles or advanced metallurgy, manage to move such heavy materials? How were the circles laid out with such apparent consistency across hundreds of sites spanning modern Senegal and Gambia? Could there have been standardized measurements, symbolic numerology, or astronomical observations guiding their construction? The patterns themselves raise profound questions. Some circles exhibit radial symmetry, while others contain central stones that may mark cardinal directions, celestial events, or sacred lines of sight. Could these alignments have been used to track solar or lunar cycles, mark the seasons, or coordinate agricultural activity? And if so, what methods of observation, calculation, and knowledge transmission were employed in societies often assumed to be technologically simple by modern standards? The interplay between scale, placement, and precision suggests an intellectual sophistication that modern observers struggle to fully comprehend. Furthermore, the sheer number and density of the circles imply social and political organization capable of mobilizing labor and resources over centuries. These were not casual constructions. They required planning, cooperation, and cultural continuity. Who oversaw these projects? Were there leaders, ritual specialists, or communities of masons dedicated to the task? And what knowledge was passed down to ensure the replication of forms and alignments across generations? The questions underscore a tension between the apparent simplicity of the stones and the complexity of the societies that produced them. Even more enigmatic are the variations within the circles. Some are perfectly round, others elliptical. Some contain central tombs, others appear empty. Certain stones show evidence of shaping or smoothing, while others remain entirely natural. Could these differences reflect regional practices, variations in ritual purpose, or temporal evolution over centuries? And might there be hidden patterns, numerical codes, or symbolic messages embedded in the arrangement of stones that have yet to be deciphered? Modern researchers attempting to replicate the construction of even a single circle confront immense challenges. Moving stones of comparable size with basic tools requires extensive labor and coordination, but replicating the consistency, orientation, and durability of hundreds or thousands of circles across diverse terrain seems almost beyond human capability without a sophisticated understanding of logistics, geometry, and social coordination. What techniques, now lost to time, allowed these early African communities to accomplish this feat? Walking among the stones today, one senses the echoes of countless lives, burials performed, ceremonies enacted, stories passed from one generation to the next. The quiet rhythm of the landscape, the rustling of grasses, the distant call of birds, the occasional movement of a lone herder, contrasts sharply with the monumental permanence of the circles. They are at once simple and profound, silent yet resonant, offering glimpses into a worldview deeply attuned to land, community, and perhaps the cosmos itself. Speculative interpretations add another layer to the mystery. Some researchers propose that the circles functioned as ritual calendars or observatories, their alignments marking solstices, equinoxes, or other celestial events. Others suggest that the arrangements symbolized social hierarchies, territorial boundaries, or cosmological beliefs encoded in stone. Yet, with so many circles unexplored and unexcavated, much remains conjectural. How much cultural knowledge is encoded in spacing, stone size, and orientation, knowledge that modern science has yet to decode? Perhaps the most compelling question is not how these stone circles were constructed, but why. Why dedicate generations of labor and coordination to erecting such monuments across a vast landscape? Were they meant to unify communities, honor ancestors, establish territorial claims, or serve as a bridge between the earthly and the celestial? And what other insights, astronomical, social, or spiritual, might remain hidden in the spaces between stones, in their silent geometry, waiting for careful observation and imagination to uncover? As the sun dips low over the Senegambian plains, casting elongated shadows across the stones, the circles endure, timeless, silent, and enigmatic. They are both markers of human ingenuity and reminders of mysteries that transcend time and technology. In their quiet persistence lies a challenge, to understand not only the stones themselves, but the minds, societies, and beliefs that made them possible. And as we walk among the monuments today, we are left with a question that echoes across centuries and continents. What knowledge, skill, and intention allowed human hands to create something seemingly impossible to replicate, and what other secrets, hidden in plain sight, have yet to be revealed? As the Senegambian plains fade into memory, leaving the silent rhythm of stone circles behind, our exploration of human ingenuity carries us once more across seas and continents, returning to the misted landscapes of Ireland. Here, perched upon the windswept hills of County Cork, lies a site that embodies both precision and mystery, its stones arranged with deliberate care yet leaving questions that have puzzled scholars for centuries. The Drombeg Stone Circle. From a distance, Drombeg presents an almost poetic silhouette against the horizon. The circle, composed of 17 upright stones forming a near-perfect arc, encloses a small central area where the ground bears the remains of an ancient hearth. The stones vary in height, some rising a meter above the turf, others lower and more modest, yet together they form a cohesive, intentional composition. Approaching the site, one is immediately aware of its scale and symmetry, a harmony that speaks to careful measurement and placement far beyond what might be expected from a community in the late Bronze Age. Archaeologists date Drombeg to approximately 1100 to 800 BCE, situating it firmly in a period marked by ritual innovation and social complexity. Excavations within the circle have revealed cremated human remains, pottery fragments, and burnt food, suggesting ceremonial activity and funerary practice. Yet beyond these tangible traces, the circle's purpose and function remain elusive. Was Drombeg primarily a site of ritual commemoration, a social gathering point, or a celestial observatory? The evidence hints at multiple layers of meaning, woven into both stone and landscape. The precision of the circle's layout is striking. The stones are carefully spaced along a nearly perfect arc, and the central hearth aligns with the setting sun at the winter solstice. Could this alignment have guided ritual activity, marking the passage of the year, the cycles of life, or the movement of the cosmos? And if so, what observational skills, cultural knowledge, and mathematical insight were required to achieve such precision without instruments as we know them today? The interplay between natural topography and deliberate placement suggests a society both attuned to its environment and capable of abstract conceptual thinking. Drombeg also raises questions about labor, organization, and technical skill. Each stone, some weighing several tons, was quarried, transported, and erected using only the tools available to Bronze Age communities. How did the builders coordinate such efforts? Were there specialists, ritual overseers, or communal teams dedicated to these constructions? And how was the knowledge of alignment, measurement, and symbolic design transmitted across generations to ensure the circle's precision? These questions point not only to technical achievement, but also to social cohesion and cultural continuity. The circle's relationship to its surrounding landscape is equally compelling. Drombeg sits upon a gentle rise, offering clear sight lines to distant hills and the horizon where the sun rises and sets. Some researchers propose that the site was part of a broader network of ceremonial or observational locations across Cork, with lines of sight linking other stone circles, burial sites, and ritual centers. If true, this suggests a sophisticated understanding of geography, astronomy, and community planning, an early form of spatial intelligence encoded directly into the landscape. Speculative interpretations deepen the mystery. Could the Drombeg Circle have functioned as a kind of communal calendar, marking seasonal changes critical to agriculture, ceremony, and social organization? Might the hearth at its center represent a ritual focus, a symbolic heart of the community where fire, life, and memory intersected? And what meanings, lost to time, might have been encoded in the height, shape, and spacing of each stone? The simplicity of the arrangement belies its potential sophistication, leaving modern observers to wonder at the intelligence and intention behind every choice. Even small details provoke questions that modern archaeology struggles to answer. The distribution of cremated remains and associated artifacts suggests selective burial or ritual deposition. Were certain individuals or families honored within the circle, or did the placement reflect cosmological symbolism? Could patterns in the stones or hearth placement contain knowledge about the stars, the seasons, or even societal hierarchy? And if so, how much remains hidden, silently preserved in stone for millennia? Modern attempts to replicate Drombeg's construction highlight the skill and insight of its original builders. Moving and erecting stones of this size, aligning them with solstice events, and coordinating ceremonial function without modern technology remains a formidable challenge. Could a contemporary team, equipped only with Bronze Age tools, reproduce the circle with the same precision, harmony, and durability? The difficulty underscores not only technical skill, but also cultural context, the social and ritual structures that allowed this work to be conceived and completed. Walking among the stones today, the visitor experiences a subtle interplay of scale, orientation, and atmosphere. The wind bends across the hilltop, carrying the sound of distant fields and the faint smell of heather. Each stone seems both monumental and intimate, a marker of human intention that interacts with landscape, sky, and observer. There is a sense of deliberate design, a rhythm that resonates not merely with sight but with perception, intuition, and memory. Perhaps the most compelling question Drombeg presents is not how the circle was built, but why. Why place 17 stones in such deliberate formation? Why orient a central hearth to the winter solstice? Why invest labor and coordination into a monument that would endure across millennia? Was it survival, spirituality, societal cohesion, or an intersection of all three? And how much knowledge, astronomical, mathematical, social, was embedded in this simple yet profound arrangement, now obscured by the passage of time? As the sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the Drombeg circle, the stones endure, silent, patient, and enigmatic. They are at once markers of human achievement, memorials of ritual practice, and enduring mysteries that challenge our understanding of prehistoric skill, knowledge, and intention. And as we stand among them, contemplating the hands, minds, and eyes that shaped these stones, we are reminded that some knowledge, encoded in earth and megalith, may remain forever beyond replication, whispering its questions across the ages and inviting us to wonder at the impossible feats of those who came before. As the evening shadows recede over the rolling hills of County Cork, leaving Drombeg's ancient circle bathed in the lingering glow of solstice light, our journey of unexplained construction and ritualized space now carries us far east, across continents and deserts, to the heart of the Arabian Peninsula. Here, in the stark expanse of the Herat region, a remarkable constellation of upright stones punctuates the horizon, the enigmatic megaliths of Al-Rajajil. At first glance, the sight appears deceptively simple. Hundreds of standing stones, varying in height from 1 to 3 meters, rise from the arid ground, arranged in linear rows, grids, and clusters that extend across the plateau for several kilometers. From the air, the pattern suggests deliberate planning, rows aligned with astonishing precision, sometimes converging or diverging in ways that imply calculation and purpose. On the ground, the monoliths are rough-hewn yet upright, weathered by centuries of wind and sand, their surfaces bearing the scars of time. Each stone stands as both a solitary sentinel and a component of a larger complex arrangement that challenges the observer's ability to comprehend its full scope. Archaeologists date Al-Rajajil to the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age, roughly 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, though precise timelines remain debated. Excavations and surveys have revealed little in the way of domestic settlement, suggesting that the site was never intended for daily habitation. Instead, it appears to have served ceremonial, ritual, or observational purposes. Human remains are sparse, but pottery shards and flint tools have been found nearby, hinting at temporary occupation or ritual activity. What puzzles researchers most is the combination of scale, alignment, and apparent intentionality across a landscape so inhospitable and remote. Why invest such labor in erecting hundreds of stones in patterns that seem meaningful yet remain largely opaque to modern interpretation? The alignments themselves spark curiosity and debate. Many rows appear oriented toward distant mountain ranges, specific points on the horizon, or even solar and lunar events. Could Al-Rajajil have functioned as a prehistoric observatory, allowing its builders to track celestial cycles, seasonal change, or navigational routes across the vast desert? And if so, what methods of measurement, sighting, and knowledge transmission did these early societies employ to achieve such precision without written records or advanced instruments? The possibility that these seemingly isolated stones encode astronomical or calendrical knowledge adds a profound layer of mystery to the site. The technical achievement of erecting these monoliths in a desert environment is equally impressive. Transporting and positioning hundreds of stones, some weighing several tons, over uneven terrain would have required careful planning, coordinated labor, and an understanding of balance, leverage, and foundation. Could small groups of people, armed only with stone, wood, and rope, move such massive rocks across sand and basalt to precise locations? And if so, what social, ritual, or symbolic motivation drove these communities to undertake such monumental efforts? The physical demands of the construction, combined with the apparent intention behind each placement, suggest a cultural sophistication often underestimated in prehistoric Arabia. Intriguingly, the stone arrangements also hint at social and symbolic structure. Certain stones stand taller than their neighbors, possibly marking central points, ceremonial foci, or alignment markers. Others cluster in parallel lines or grids, forming visual pathways that may have guided processions, ritual movement, or even observational practice. Could the site represent a map of territorial claims, a ceremonial center, or a symbolic recreation of cosmological order? And if so, how did the builders encode such information into stone, landscape, and spatial orientation in ways that continue to defy replication and modern understanding? Speculative theories abound. Some researchers suggest that Al-Rajajil functioned as a sacred landscape, where natural and human-made features intersected to create ritual significance. Others posit that the rows of stones were used to track water sources, seasonal grazing patterns, or celestial phenomena crucial to survival in an arid environment. Could the arrangement have served multiple purposes simultaneously, practical, spiritual, and astronomical, blending observation, ritual, and symbolism into one monumental endeavor? The evidence allows for many interpretations, yet none fully explain the scale, precision, and persistence of these structures. Walking among the stones today, one is struck by their presence, silent, weathered, and yet somehow alive with intent. The wind sweeps across the plateau, carrying grains of sand that whisper across rough stone, connecting observer, landscape, and monument. There is a sense that the builders of Al-Rajajil understood their environment in ways that transcend mere survival. They engaged with the land, sky, and each other to create a statement that endures across millennia. Modern attempts to replicate even a fraction of Al-Rajajil's construction underscore the ingenuity required. While lifting and aligning stones is physically possible, reproducing hundreds of stones in precise linear and grid patterns across uneven terrain, with cultural coherence and ceremonial purpose, seems nearly insurmountable without knowledge, organization, and observation lost to time. Could a contemporary team, armed only with primitive tools, achieve the precision, scale, and spatial harmony observed at Al-Rajajil? The question highlights not only the technical skill, but also the social, ritual, and cognitive frameworks that made such construction possible. Perhaps the most compelling mystery is not the physical achievement alone, but the intention behind it. Why this site, in this harsh landscape, at this scale? What knowledge, astronomical, environmental, or spiritual, was encoded into each row, cluster, and alignment? What social or ritual frameworks enabled hundreds of stones to be erected in patterns that communicate across millennia, yet remain largely indecipherable to modern eyes? And how much more might be hidden beneath the sands, waiting for patient observation to reveal connections between horizon, stone, and sky? As the desert sun begins its descent, casting long shadows across Al-Rajajil's upright sentinels, the stones endure, silent, patient, and enigmatic. They are monuments of human ingenuity, markers of ritual intent, and enduring puzzles that challenge our understanding of prehistoric skill, knowledge, and vision. Standing among them, one cannot help but feel both awe and humility. Some knowledge, encoded in stone and landscape, may forever resist replication, whispering questions across the ages to anyone who dares to wonder at the impossible feats of those who came before. As the scorching plains of Al-Rajajil fade behind us, leaving the upright monoliths of the Arabian desert etched into memory, Our journey of enigmatic human construction carries us northward, across the Mediterranean, to the rugged and windswept island of Corsica. Here, amid jagged granite hills and thick maquis brush, lies a mysterious cluster of megalithic structures that has quietly endured for millennia, the dolmen cluster of Corsica. At first sight, the dolmens appear deceptively modest, stone slabs arranged into low rectangular chambers, partially collapsed or overgrown by vegetation, yet closer inspection reveals both scale and intention. Each dolmen comprises several massive orthostats supporting a capstone, forming a space large enough to enclose the human form. Some are solitary, others form clusters, as though marking related tombs or communal ritual sites. The stones are local granite, weathered and rough, yet placed with a precision that speaks to careful observation and deliberate planning. Even in partial ruin, the dolmens convey a sense of permanence and reverence that transcends their humble appearance. Dating these structures proves challenging, but archaeologists place their construction in the late Neolithic period, roughly between 4000 and 3000 BCE. Cremated human remains and fragments of pottery have been discovered within several dolmens, suggesting funerary purposes. Yet, the broader pattern of placement and alignment across the Corsican landscape remains enigmatic. Why choose these particular hilltops or plateaus for construction? Why cluster some dolmens closely while leaving others isolated? And what principles guided the orientation of each stone, some of which align intriguingly with distant mountains, valleys, or horizons? The technical feat of erecting dolmens in this rugged terrain is remarkable. Each capstone weighs several tons, and lifting it onto upright supports would have demanded not only brute force, but sophisticated understanding of leverage, balance, and teamwork. How did small Neolithic communities transport these stones across uneven terrain, often without access to wheeled vehicles or pulleys? And how did they coordinate labor to achieve both functionality and stability, ensuring the structures would endure centuries of weathering? The question is not merely physical, but social. Constructing dolmens required planning, shared purpose, and cultural knowledge passed down through generations. Yet Dolmen Cluster of Corsica is more than a technical achievement. It is a deliberate dialogue with the landscape. Many dolmens occupy elevated positions overlooking valleys, rivers, or coastal plains. Could these placements have symbolic meaning, connecting the deceased to the broader world of nature, ancestors, or even celestial cycles? Some researchers suggest alignments with the solstice or lunar events, hinting at an early awareness of astronomical patterns. Others propose a purely social function, a site of communal burial that reinforced kinship, hierarchy, and local identity. Perhaps it is both, a complex interplay of spiritual, social, and environmental awareness encoded in stone. The clusters themselves raise further questions. Why are some dolmens grouped closely together while others stand apart? Do these spatial patterns reflect familial or tribal divisions, chronological sequencing, or ritual distinctions now lost to history? The variation in size and construction technique, from low, tightly bound chambers to taller, more imposing dolmens, suggests a nuanced cultural language expressed in stone, one that modern researchers can only partially decipher. Could these differences encode knowledge about status, lineage, or cosmology? Or were they guided by practical concerns, such as the size of available stones or local topography? Modern attempts to replicate even a single Corsican dolmen highlight the skill and ingenuity of its builders. Raising a single multi-ton capstone requires careful planning, collective effort, and precise calculation of forces. Reproducing the entire cluster, with its arrangement, alignments, and durability, seems virtually impossible without knowledge that has been lost. What combination of observation, experimentation, and inherited wisdom enabled these early Corsican communities to erect monuments that could survive millennia of wind, rain, and erosion? And what social or ritual structures sustained the continuity of such monumental effort across generations? Walking among the dolmens today, the visitor is struck by the interplay of scale, silence, and landscape. The surrounding hills roll into the distance. The wind rustles through scrub and grass, and birds circle above, yet the stones feel eternal, anchored by purpose and time. There is a tactile sense of the people who placed them, their hands shaping stone, their eyes measuring horizon lines, their minds envisioning permanence. Each dolmen conveys an intimate dialogue between human intention and the raw forces of nature, a balance between ingenuity and humility. Speculative interpretations add a further layer of intrigue. Some suggest that the dolmens served as territorial markers, delineating sacred or communal space in a prehistoric Corsica where mobility was essential. Others propose that the alignment and clustering may encode cosmological knowledge, functioning as rudimentary observatories or ceremonial calendars. Could the stones themselves have been imbued with symbolic meaning, each shape, height, and position representing concepts beyond mere burial? And if so, how much of that meaning was understood by those who used the dolmens, and how much has been obscured by millennia of erosion and cultural change? Perhaps the most compelling question dolmen cluster of Corsica presents is this: what combination of skill, observation, and cultural insight allowed these communities to create enduring monuments in such a challenging landscape? Beyond the sheer technical achievement lies the deeper mystery of intention. Why did early Corsicans choose to shape, lift, and align these stones in patterns that resonate across millennia, echoing across hills and valleys long after their creators vanished? As the Corsican sun begins to dip behind the rugged peaks, casting long shadows across the dolmens, the sight stands patient and silent. It is both a testament to human ingenuity and a puzzle that resists replication or simple interpretation. Standing among these ancient stones, one feels the weight of time and the ingenuity of those who came before. And as the light fades, leaving the dolmens etched in silhouette against the evening sky, we are left to wonder, what other knowledge, buried intentions, or lost traditions might these stones hold, patiently awaiting discovery by those who are willing to listen to their silent testimony? As the winded hills and rugged dolmens of Corsica fade behind us, leaving the echoes of stone clusters in our memory, our journey now carries us across the Mediterranean to the sun-drenched plains of Malta. Here, amid a landscape of limestone cliffs, rolling fields, and scattered prehistoric ruins, lies one of the most enigmatic and awe-inspiring remnants of Neolithic ingenuity, the Tal-Qadi Temples. At first approach, Tal-Qadi presents itself as a series of massive, interlocking stone blocks, their surfaces smooth in some places and rough in others, weathered by millennia of wind, rain, and human passage. The temples rise from the ground in a series of semicircular and spiral arrangements, forming an intricate plan that seems at once organic and deliberate. The central areas are defined by enormous megaliths, some weighing tens of tons, carefully placed to create chambers, corridors, and open courtyards. Even in partial ruin, the layout evokes a profound sense of purpose and sophistication, a blueprint that must have required meticulous planning, immense labor, and precise knowledge of geometry and structure. Archaeologists date Tal-Qadi to approximately 3,600 to 2,500 BCE, situating it in Malta's enigmatic temple-building period. Excavations have revealed altars, libation pits, and intricate carvings, suggesting ritual activity with religious, ceremonial, or astronomical significance. Yet the full story remains elusive. What drove the Neolithic inhabitants of Malta to raise stones of such weight and complexity, to arrange them in patterns that echo across the landscape? Were these temples purely ceremonial, or did they serve broader social and cosmological purposes, perhaps acting as hubs for knowledge, trade, or communication among dispersed communities? The technical challenges of Tal-Qadi are staggering. The megaliths, quarried from local limestone, were transported, lifted, and positioned without wheeled vehicles or modern lifting devices. Each stone had to be placed with a precision that allowed for stability across centuries, while also creating an intricate network of chambers, altars, and open spaces. Could the builders have relied on simple levers and ramps alone, or was their lost knowledge of balance, friction, or collective engineering techniques now unknown to us? The coordination of labor, knowledge transmission across generations, and understanding of structural mechanics all point to a society far more sophisticated than conventional assumptions often allow. Even more mysterious is the temple's alignment. Portions of Tal-Qadi appear oriented to celestial events, particularly the solstices and equinoxes, hinting at an understanding of solar cycles. Could the temple have functioned as a calendar, guiding agricultural and ritual activities with remarkable precision? Some researchers suggest alignments with lunar phenomena as well, raising questions about the level of astronomical observation achieved by these early communities. How were these alignments determined, and how was such knowledge encoded in stone for successive generations? The thought of prehistoric observers marking celestial cycles with massive megaliths underscores both ingenuity and intention. The interior spaces add another layer of intrigue. Carvings of spirals, concentric circles, and symbolic motifs adorn walls and altars, suggesting ritual or cosmological significance. Do these carvings represent abstract concepts, maps of the heavens, or coded knowledge of time and space? And how much of that meaning has been lost over millennia, obscured by erosion, human activity, or cultural discontinuity? The interplay between functional architecture and symbolic design implies a culture in which spiritual, social, and practical concerns were inseparably intertwined, each influencing the placement, shape, and orientation of stone. Tal-Qadi's broader context is equally enigmatic. The temples are part of a wider network across Malta, including sites such as Gigantica, Hagarchim, and Maeshowe, suggesting shared cultural practices and architectural principles over centuries. Could knowledge of construction, alignment, and symbolism have been transmitted across generations and islands, preserved through ritual and oral tradition? The existence of multiple interrelated temple sites hints at a social and spiritual network of surprising complexity. How did these early Maltese communities coordinate labor, share expertise, and maintain continuity in monumental construction over centuries? Speculative interpretations abound. Some propose that Tal-Qadi served as a ceremonial hub for fertility, agricultural rites, or ancestor veneration, the spiral designs symbolizing cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Others suggest that it functioned as an observatory, encoding astronomical phenomena crucial to survival on the island. Could it be that the temples combined both roles, integrating ritual practice with practical knowledge of seasonal cycles, or even acting as a sacred classroom for the transmission of cosmological wisdom? The multiplicity of potential functions speaks to a sophisticated, holistic worldview. Even today, modern attempts to replicate Tal-Qadi's construction underscore the ingenuity and precision of its builders. Raising multi-ton megaliths into place, ensuring alignment across chambers, and preserving structural stability without modern tools is extraordinarily difficult. To replicate an entire temple complex with the same precision, cohesion, and symbolic intent would challenge even contemporary engineers. How did prehistoric Maltese communities achieve such feats, And how was knowledge of these techniques preserved and transmitted without written language? These questions continue to challenge researchers and archaeologists alike. Walking through the site today, the visitor senses both intimacy and grandeur. The megaliths rise overhead. The carved motifs seem to whisper stories, and the surrounding landscape frames the temples in a way that emphasizes connection between stone, sky, and earth. There is a tangible sense of human intention, a dialogue across millennia that invites reflection, awe, and inquiry. Each stone carries the imprint of countless hands. Each alignment hints at careful observation, and each carving suggests meaning lost, yet not entirely forgotten. Perhaps the most compelling mystery of Tal-Qadi lies not in the physical construction alone, but in the intention, vision, and knowledge required to conceive it. Why dedicate immense labor, skill, and observation to create a temple network of such scale, precision, and symbolic depth? How much of the knowledge, astronomical, social, spiritual, was encoded in the stones themselves, and how much has been lost to the passage of time? And finally, what other secrets might these silent megaliths still hold, waiting to be discovered by those willing to observe closely and think deeply about the ingenuity of our prehistoric ancestors? As the Maltese sun dips low, casting long, angular shadows across the limestone chambers, Tal-Qadi endures, timeless, enigmatic, and profoundly human. The stones speak without words, posing questions that remain unanswered and challenging modern observers to appreciate both the skill and the vision of those who raised them. In their silent presence, we are reminded that some achievements, though impossible to replicate, continue to inspire wonder, reflection, and the timeless pursuit of understanding. As the limestone temples of Malta recede from view, leaving their intricate carvings and solstice alignments behind, our journey of ancient ingenuity carries us northwest, across the tempestuous waters of the Atlantic to the rugged coastline of Brittany, France. There, atop a gentle rise overlooking fields and pastures, stands one of Europe's most awe-inspiring and enigmatic megalithic monuments, the Cairn of Barnenez. From a distance, Barnenez appears as a monumental mound, a sprawling silhouette of stone that seems to merge with the landscape itself. At first glance, it is hard to grasp the scale, more than 70 meters in length, 30 meters wide, and over 8 meters high, composed of countless slabs of locally quarried limestone. Some stones weigh several tons, yet they have been positioned with deliberate care, forming a series of chambers within the cairn. Entering the structure, one is immediately struck by the contrast of mass and precision. The massive exterior conceals a carefully orchestrated interior, with passageways and burial chambers aligned along intricate axes. Archaeologists date the Cairn of Barnenez to approximately 4,800 to 4,300 BCE, making it one of the oldest megalithic monuments in Europe. Within its chambers, excavations have revealed cremated human remains, flint tools, pottery fragments, and traces of pigments, suggesting that the site served as both a necropolis and a place of ritual significance. Yet even with centuries of study, many questions remain. Why construct such an enormous mound in a relatively isolated landscape? What motivated communities of the early Neolithic to transport and assemble massive stones, some weighing upwards of 6 tons, using only simple tools and sheer human ingenuity? The engineering of Barnenez is staggering. Each slab had to be carefully positioned to create chambers capable of withstanding the test of millennia, while the overall mound maintains structural stability across its immense length. The effort required immense coordination and planning, implying not only a sophisticated understanding of construction principles, but also social cohesion and shared purpose. Could small Neolithic groups, without modern machinery, lift, maneuver, and position these stones with such precision? How was knowledge of these techniques transmitted across generations, ensuring that each chamber, corridor, and passage aligned with a coherent design? The interior chambers themselves are equally enigmatic. Long corridors lead to small burial rooms, each framed by upright orthostats and capped with massive stones. Some chambers display careful attention to symmetry and proportion, while others appear irregular, suggesting adaptation to terrain, stone availability, or ritual needs. Were these chambers organized according to status, family, or lineage? Did their orientation encode astronomical or seasonal knowledge, as has been observed at other European megalithic sites? The alignment of certain passages toward specific points on the horizon raises the possibility that the builders had a sophisticated understanding of solar and lunar cycles. The cairn's sheer size and complexity beg the question of purpose. Was Barnenez solely a burial site, or did it function as a ceremonial center, a place for rites, gatherings, or even instruction? Could the arrangement of stones, the distribution of chambers, and the careful alignment with the surrounding landscape reflect a cosmology encoded in stone, one that communicated social, spiritual, and environmental knowledge across generations? The monument seems designed not only to endure, but also to impress, to inspire awe, and to speak of human ingenuity in ways that transcend its immediate functional use. Modern attempts to replicate even a single chamber underscore the extraordinary skill required. Moving slabs of multiple tons into precise position, ensuring stability and alignment over centuries, challenges even contemporary engineering. To recreate the entire cairn, with its interconnected chambers and carefully graded mound, would be nearly impossible without knowledge and techniques that have been lost. How did these early builders coordinate labor, measure distances, and maintain alignment with such precision? And how was such monumental effort justified in a time when survival itself demanded immense energy and focus? Beyond construction, Barnenez invites reflection on the human impulse to monumentalize memory, identity, and ritual. Each chamber, each passage, each carefully placed stone represents intention, a conscious decision to honor the dead, to engage with the landscape, and to leave a legacy that endures through millennia. What drove these prehistoric communities to undertake such laborious, time-consuming, and technically demanding projects? Was it devotion, belief, or a desire to communicate with forces, celestial, spiritual, or social, that we may never fully understand? Speculative interpretations abound. Some researchers suggest that the cairn may have functioned as a calendar or observatory, tracking solar and lunar movements crucial to agriculture and ritual. Others propose that the arrangement of chambers reflects social hierarchy, familial lineage, or symbolic cosmology. Could the cairn have served multiple purposes simultaneously, practical, ritual, and symbolic, encoded into stone with an understanding of permanence and resonance that we struggle to replicate today? The interplay between technical achievement, ritual practice, and symbolic meaning remains tantalizingly unresolved. Walking through the Cairn of Barnenez today, one is struck by the interplay of intimacy and grandeur. The massive stones tower overhead, yet the chambers feel enclosed, almost protective. Light filters through narrow passages, illuminating rough-hewn surfaces and traces of ancient human activity. It is as if the cairn itself is a bridge between the living and the dead, between human ingenuity and natural forces, between mystery and understanding. Each step, each shadow, each echo of past hands moving stones invites reflection on the scale, skill, and vision required to conceive such a structure. Perhaps the greatest mystery of Barnenez lies not merely in its physical construction, but in the knowledge, intent, and social cohesion it embodies. How did prehistoric communities conceive of a project that would endure nearly 5 millennia? How much of their understanding of the cosmos, landscape, and social structure is encoded in the stone, waiting to be deciphered by patient observation? And how many lessons about human ingenuity, collaboration, and ambition remain hidden within the cairn, whispered by its silent stones to those willing to listen? As the Breton sun begins to lower over the Atlantic horizon, casting long shadows across the mound, Barnenez endures, monumental, enigmatic, and profoundly human. The cairn is a testament to ingenuity, vision, and ritual, standing as a puzzle that resists replication and a reminder of the enduring mysteries of our prehistoric past. And as we pause among its chambers, we are left with a lingering question. What further knowledge, hidden intent, or lost tradition might these stones still hold, waiting for the attentive observer to uncover their secrets? As the windswept cairn of Barnenez recedes from view, leaving its labyrinthine chambers and monumental stones echoing in our minds, our journey continues southward along the Atlantic edge of Europe, to the sun-baked plains of Alentejo, Portugal. Here, amid rolling fields of wheat and olive trees, stands one of the Iberian Peninsula's most remarkable and enigmatic Neolithic structures, the dolmen of Onta Grande do Zambujeiro. From a distance, the dolmen appears as a solitary silhouette against the horizon, a massive capstone resting precariously on upright stones, forming a chamber whose interior seems to hold centuries of quiet mystery. Approaching the site, the scale becomes immediately apparent. The capstone alone measures roughly 7.5 meters in length and weighs an estimated 20 tons. It rests atop a carefully arranged series of vertical orthostats, creating a burial chamber large enough to accommodate multiple individuals. The sheer audacity of lifting such a stone without modern machinery is breathtaking, a testament to the ingenuity, labor, and communal coordination of its builders. Archaeologists date Onta Grande do Zambujeiro to around 4000 to 3000 BCE, situating it firmly within Portugal's late Neolithic period. Excavations have revealed cremated remains, flint tools, and fragments of decorated pottery, suggesting the dolmen served as a burial site and likely a ceremonial center. Yet the motivations behind its construction, the choice of location, and the methods employed remain only partially understood. Why, in a landscape dominated by low hills and scattered granitic outcrops, was this particular site selected? Was it the view, the geology, or perhaps an alignment with celestial markers that dictated its placement? And how did small Neolithic communities lift, maneuver, and precisely position megaliths weighing tens of tons? The construction of the dolmen challenges modern understanding of prehistoric engineering. The orthostats are not merely placed randomly, they are carefully positioned to support the massive capstone in a stable formation. Some stones bear the marks of splitting and shaping, indicating advanced knowledge of leverage and material properties. The coordination of labor required to move and raise these stones would have necessitated careful planning, social cohesion, and knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Could such precision have been achieved purely through trial and error? Or was there a set of techniques, now lost, that guided these monumental efforts? Inside the chamber, the space evokes a sense of both intimacy and grandeur. The low, enclosed interior contrasts with the massive weight overhead, creating a feeling of being held within the monument itself. Archaeologists note the careful arrangement of burial remains within the chamber, suggesting that placement held symbolic or ritual significance. Did the builders orient the chamber to align with solar or lunar events? Some scholars point to a slight eastward orientation, raising the possibility that the rising sun on specific days may have illuminated the interior, marking moments of seasonal or spiritual importance. Yet these alignments remain uncertain, leaving ample room for speculation. The dolmen's size and form also suggest a society that understood the importance of visual impact. The massive capstone, visible from a distance, would have served as a constant reminder of communal effort, ancestral veneration, or territorial presence. Was the dolmen intended as a monument to the dead, a focal point for ritual gatherings, or a symbolic anchor connecting the living to the cosmos? The interplay between scale, function, and symbolism creates a puzzle that modern researchers have yet to solve fully. Modern attempts to replicate the lifting of the capstone reveal the extraordinary skill required. Even with contemporary knowledge of levers, ropes, and coordinated labor, moving and balancing a 20-ton stone in a precise position is extremely difficult. The challenge becomes even greater when considering the uneven terrain, lack of standardized tools, and absence of written plans available to the original builders. How did these Neolithic communities achieve such feats? What social structures, rituals, and knowledge systems enabled the precise coordination necessary to erect and stabilize this immense monument? Beyond its construction, Anta Grande do Zambujero raises questions about cultural continuity, knowledge transmission, and the purpose of monumental architecture. The dolmen is part of a broader Iberian megalithic tradition, which spans from Portugal into Spain, encompassing hundreds of dolmens, menhirs, and other stone structures. Was there a shared architectural language, a set of construction principles and symbolic codes passed across regions and generations? And if so, how was this knowledge preserved, adapted, and communicated over centuries without written records? Speculative theories abound, each adding layers to the dolmen's intrigue. Some suggest it functioned as a celestial observatory, encoding solar, lunar, or stellar knowledge within its design. Others propose that the dolmen represented a territorial marker, asserting social presence and reinforcing communal cohesion. There are even arguments that the spatial arrangement of stones could encode cosmological or ritual symbolism now lost to us. While mainstream archaeology leans toward practical and ceremonial explanations, the unanswered questions remain tantalizing. Why this site? Why these stones? And why this precise configuration? Walking around and within Anta Grande do Zambujero today, the visitor is struck by the sense of permanence, vision, and deliberate human effort. The weathered stones bear silent witness to millennia of natural erosion, human curiosity, and cultural continuity. Light filters across the rough surfaces, highlighting the meticulous arrangement of orthostats and the sheer audacity of the capstone above. It is easy to imagine generations of Neolithic builders laboring patiently, carefully, and reverently, guided by both necessity and belief. Perhaps the most compelling mystery lies not solely in the stones themselves, but in the mindset, ingenuity, and social structures of the people who raised them. How did a society, with no metal tools or mechanized technology, achieve such precise engineering and create a monument that has withstood the test of time? What combination of observation, experimentation, and inherited knowledge allowed them to move, shape, and lift stones so enormous, and to do so repeatedly across a landscape that presented both logistical and topographical challenges? As the Ollantaytambo sun dips low over the fields surrounding the dolmen, casting long shadows across the massive capstone, the structure endures, silent, imposing, and enigmatic. It invites reflection on the extraordinary capabilities of Neolithic communities and the mysteries that remain encoded in stone. Standing within its chamber or beneath its colossal capstone, we are reminded of the human impulse to create permanence, to communicate across generations, and to leave a legacy that challenges replication even millennia later. And so, as the shadows stretch and the wind rustles across the surrounding plains, the dolmen of Anta Grande do Zambujero stands both as a testament to human skill and as a riddle, whispering questions that remain unanswered. What knowledge, intention, or cultural wisdom lies hidden within its massive stones, waiting for the observer willing to probe its silent testimony? How much of its meaning was practical, symbolic, or cosmological? And how much has been lost to the slow erosion of time? The mysteries endure, quietly challenging us to imagine the ingenuity of those who, thousands of years ago, transformed the raw landscape into a monument impossible to replicate. As the vast plains of Alentejo and the monumental dolmen of Anta Grande do Zambujero fade behind us, our journey of ancient wonders carries us across the Mediterranean to the rugged, wind-swept hills of Sardinia. Here, perched amid rolling limestone ridges and hidden valleys, lies one of the island's most enigmatic and haunting prehistoric sites, Monte Baranta. Unlike the massive dolmens or sprawling cairns we have encountered, Monte Baranta is subtler in scale, yet no less mysterious. A labyrinth of stone arrangements, terraced platforms, and enigmatic structures that seem to merge naturally with the rocky landscape, inviting the observer to wonder at both human ingenuity and purpose. From a distance, Monte Baranta appears as a series of low terraces and scattered stone platforms, weathered by centuries of wind and rain, partially hidden by shrubs and scattered olive trees. But closer inspection reveals meticulous planning, walls, embankments, and platforms that seem deliberately arranged across the hillside, creating an intricate topography of functional and symbolic spaces. Some stones are finely dressed, while others appear raw, as though the builders selected and positioned each one according to a purpose now lost to time. The structures are aligned along natural contours of the hill, integrating the terrain itself into the design, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of both landscape and architecture. Archaeological studies date the Monte Baranta complex to roughly 3000 to 1800 BCE during Sardinia's pre-Nuragic period. While the precise purpose of the site remains debated, excavations have revealed ceramics, tools, and occasional human remains, hinting at ritual activity or habitation. Yet, much about Monte Baranta remains unresolved. Why choose this particular ridge? Was it for defense, visibility, spiritual resonance, or astronomical observation? And what motivated the construction of terraces and platforms that, while subtle, required immense effort to shape and organize across uneven terrain? The technical challenges of Monte Baranta are remarkable. Stones weighing several tons were quarried, transported, and positioned without the benefit of wheels, draft animals, or metal tools. Terraces had to be leveled and reinforced, walls erected to create usable platforms, and alignments maintained across the hillside. Could this have been accomplished purely through trial and error? Or did the builders possess knowledge of geometry, leverage, and load distribution that is now lost? The scale of coordination, the labor required, and the precision of placement all suggest a society capable of complex planning, collective effort, and long-term vision. Beyond construction, the purpose of Monte Baranta continues to intrigue. The layout of terraces and stone structures hints at both practical and ceremonial functions. Were the platforms intended for habitation, storage, or agricultural management? Or were they primarily ritual spaces, places for offerings, gatherings, or ancestor veneration? Certain stone alignments hint at possible solar or lunar correlations, suggesting that the builders may have incorporated an understanding of celestial cycles into the design. Could the terraced arrangement encode a calendar, marking seasonal or agricultural events critical for survival in this rugged landscape? The subtlety of Monte Baranta's design is part of its mystery. Unlike massive dolmens or cairns, it does not dominate the landscape with sheer size. Rather, it integrates with the natural environment, demanding careful observation to appreciate its intricacies. This integration raises profound questions about the intentions of its creators. Did they seek harmony with the land, embedding social, ritual, or astronomical knowledge into the terrain itself? Or does the layout hold symbolic meaning now obscured, a map of cosmology, lineage, or power written in stone across the hills? Modern attempts to replicate the site underscore the ingenuity of the original builders. Constructing terraces, moving multi-ton stones, and achieving functional stability on uneven terrain is a daunting task even today. To do so with the limited tools and technology available to a Neolithic community highlights an advanced understanding of material properties, leverage, and labor management. How did these early Sardinian communities organize, plan, and transmit the technical knowledge required to achieve such feats? How many generations contributed to the creation of Monte Baranta, and how was this knowledge preserved and adapted over time? Speculation about Monte Baranta's function is broad. Some researchers propose it was a fortified settlement, a safe refuge in times of conflict. Others suggest a ceremonial or ritual purpose, connecting the living community with ancestral spirits or celestial forces. Certain alignments within the terraces point to solar and lunar phenomena, implying potential use as a calendar or observatory. Could it be that Monte Baranta combined multiple functions, practical, social, and spiritual, each layer of stone encoding knowledge that spanned generations? The ambiguity of purpose adds to its allure, leaving observers to wonder what priorities and worldviews motivated its construction. The physical experience of the site is immersive. Walking along the terraced paths, observing the placement of stones and the subtle shifts in elevation, one senses both human intention and reverence for the landscape. Sunlight casts angular shadows across walls and platforms, highlighting textures, joins, and alignments that reveal the care taken by the builders. The combination of scale, labor, and subtlety evokes awe. The site is neither ostentatious nor monumental in the classical sense, yet it communicates a profound understanding of space, function, and symbolism. Perhaps the most compelling question of Monte Baranta lies not in the stones themselves, but in the knowledge and vision of its creators. How did a society, without written language or metal tools, conceive, plan, and execute a complex arrangement of terraces and platforms across challenging terrain? What cultural, spiritual, or practical imperatives drove this extraordinary undertaking? And how much knowledge, astronomical, architectural, social, or ritual, was encoded in stone and lost over millennia? As the Sardinian sun begins to sink behind the distant hills, casting long shadows across terraced platforms and weathered stones, Monte Baranta endures, silent yet evocative. Its mystery is not only in the methods of construction, but in the intentions, vision, and societal sophistication required to shape the landscape in such an enduring way. Standing among the terraces, one is reminded that some monuments are designed not merely to last, but to provoke reflection, curiosity, and awe across millennia. And so, as the wind whispers through the limestone ridges and the fading light stretches shadows across the terraces, Monte Baranta stands as both a testament to human ingenuity and a riddle. What knowledge, practice, or belief inspired its creation, and how much of that wisdom remains hidden within the stones themselves? The site invites contemplation, leaving observers with questions that endure. What secrets lie still undiscovered, and what lost understanding of landscape, labor, and human vision allowed this monument to emerge in a time long before the conveniences of modern civilization? As the sun dips below the rugged hills of Sardinia, leaving Monte Baranta's terraces bathed in shadow, our journey of human ingenuity and prehistoric mystery carries us northwest, across the Iberian Peninsula, to a verdant landscape of rolling hills and scattered oak groves. Here, amidst the gentle slopes of the Extremadura region in Spain, rises a silent sentinel of Neolithic ingenuity, the dolmen of Soto. Unlike the sprawling terraces or massive dolmens we have encountered before, Soto exudes a quiet, measured presence, its massive stones integrated almost organically into the landscape, inviting reflection on the skill, vision, and beliefs of those who raised them thousands of years ago. From a distance, the dolmen appears deceptively simple. A broad capstone resting atop a series of vertical orthostats, forming an elongated chamber that seems to emerge naturally from the surrounding grassy slopes. Yet the closer one approaches, the subtle intricacy of the site becomes apparent. Each stone has been carefully selected and positioned, some weighing several tons, arranged to create a stable structure that has endured the elements for millennia. The capstone itself is remarkable in both scale and balance, its precise placement atop the orthostats hinting at an intimate understanding of leverage, weight distribution, and construction technique far beyond what might be expected of a Neolithic community. Archaeologists date the dolmen of Soto to roughly 4000 to 3000 BCE, situating it in the late Neolithic period, when the Iberian Peninsula saw the proliferation of megalithic construction. Excavations have revealed human remains, pottery fragments, and flint tools, indicating the dolmen's primary function as a burial chamber. Yet, as with many megalithic monuments, practical function alone does not explain its design. Why this particular location, overlooking the undulating valleys below? Was the positioning chosen for visibility, for ritual significance, or for alignment with celestial phenomena? And how did these early builders, with limited technological resources, coordinate the labor and knowledge required to move, lift, and precisely position multi-ton stones? The technical mastery of the dolmen of Soto is extraordinary. Each orthostat supports the immense weight of the capstone, its placement carefully calculated to prevent collapse. Some stones are subtly shaped, others left raw, suggesting that the builders were aware of natural material properties and leveraged both geometry and physics to achieve stability. Moving and erecting these stones would have required coordinated effort, careful planning, and perhaps even primitive tools designed for maximum leverage. Could this knowledge have been shared across communities, a form of early engineering wisdom passed down over generations? Or was it the product of localized experimentation, trial and error, and cumulative skill? Stepping into the interior of the dolmen, one is immediately struck by the interplay of space, shadow, and light. The chamber is low and elongated, creating a sense of intimacy and reverence. Archaeologists note the careful arrangement of human remains and artifacts within, suggesting ritualized placement rather than haphazard deposition. Could the orientation of the chamber have been influenced by solar or lunar cycles? Some researchers suggest a subtle eastward alignment, raising the possibility that the first light of dawn on significant days may have penetrated the chamber, illuminating those interred within. If so, such precision implies not only practical skill, but also a sophisticated understanding of the movement of celestial bodies. The dolmen of Soto also raises questions about symbolism and social cohesion. Constructing a monument of this scale would have required labor, cooperation, and shared purpose. Was the dolmen intended as a communal tomb, a statement of social hierarchy, or a spiritual anchor connecting the living community to ancestors and the cosmos? The act of construction itself, moving and balancing enormous stones, would have demanded planning, ritual, and coordination, a reflection of social organization and collective knowledge. Could the dolmen have served multiple purposes, blending practical burial function with ceremonial, astronomical, or symbolic meaning? Modern attempts to replicate the construction of Soto underscore its complexity. Even with contemporary tools, lifting a capstone of several tons and placing it atop vertical supports with precision is a daunting challenge. That Neolithic communities accomplished this without metal tools, pulleys, or mechanized equipment is remarkable. How did they achieve such feats, and what methods, now lost, enabled them to transport, shape, and position these stones? How much of this knowledge was oral, ritualized, or encoded in communal practice rather than written record? Speculative theories abound. Some scholars suggest that dolmens like Soto functioned as part of a broader ritual landscape, connecting burial sites, sacred spaces, and natural features through alignments or sightlines. Others argue for astronomical purposes. Perhaps the chambers were markers for solstices or equinoxes, their orientations encoding observations of the sun, moon, or stars. There are even propositions that symbolic numerology or cosmological principles influenced construction, with stone placement reflecting a deeper, now lost understanding of the universe. While mainstream archaeology emphasizes funerary and ritual interpretations, the persistence of unanswered questions ensures that Soto remains a site of ongoing curiosity. The physical presence of the dolmen is profoundly moving. The massive capstone, weathered by millennia of rain and wind, seems almost impossibly balanced atop the vertical stones. Light shifts across the chamber, accentuating the texture of the stone, the joins between orthostats, and the deliberate geometry of the construction. The site is neither ostentatious nor monumental in the sense of scale alone. Rather, its power emerges from the careful balance between stone, space, and the surrounding landscape. One senses not only the technical skill of its builders, but also their reverence for the site and the cultural or spiritual meanings embedded within it. Perhaps the deepest mystery of the dolmen of Soto lies not in its construction, but in the knowledge, intention, and worldview of its creators. How did a society without written language or advanced tools envision, plan, and execute such a precise and enduring monument? What rituals, beliefs, or practical imperatives motivated the careful placement of every stone? How did the social structures and cultural knowledge of the community enable the collective effort required to achieve such architectural mastery? As the day wanes and shadows stretch across the rolling hills of Extremadura, the dolmen of Soto endures, silent, imposing, and enigmatic. Its stones invite reflection, its chamber evokes awe, and its presence challenges us to consider the ingenuity of the Neolithic mind. Standing within or beside the dolmen, one is confronted with the enduring puzzle of human creativity and the remarkable ability of early societies to transform raw stone into structures that not only survive millennia, but continue to provoke thought and wonder. And so, as the wind whispers through the oak groves and long grasses surrounding the dolmen, Soto stands as both a monument and a mystery. What combination of technical skill, social cohesion, and spiritual vision enabled its creation? What knowledge has been lost to time, buried alongside the stones or carried silently through generations? And what can this humble yet monumental structure teach us about the ingenuity, ambition, and cosmological imagination of those who lived thousands of years before us, leaving a legacy impossible to replicate but impossible to ignore? As we leave behind the ancient dolmens of the Iberian Peninsula, our journey of enigmatic human ingenuity carries us across the North American Southwest, to the high mesas and deep canyons where stone and earth seem to merge into a single, enduring landscape. Here, perched against the rugged cliffs of New Mexico, lie the Bandelier stone structures, a labyrinth of dwellings, kivas, and fortifications carved and built by the ancestral Puebloans. These structures, silently nested among cliffs and canyon walls, evoke both practical mastery and cultural sophistication, leaving questions about the lives, skills, and visions of their creators that endure millennia later. From a distance, Bandelier's structures blend almost seamlessly with the reddish volcanic tuff cliffs, their edges softened by centuries of erosion. The cliffs themselves, scarred by fissures and caves, serve as natural shelters. Into these spaces, ancient builders inserted rooms, ladders, and niches, creating dwellings that are part architecture, part geology. At the base of the cliffs lie masonry walls and terraced platforms, their stones carefully fitted without mortar in many instances, forming kivas, storage rooms, and communal spaces. The juxtaposition of carved rock and built masonry illustrates an intimate understanding of material properties, soft enough to carve but stable enough to endure, and of the topography itself. Archaeological evidence dates these structures primarily to the 12th through 16th centuries CE, during the flourishing period of the ancestral Puebloan culture. Excavations reveal a sophisticated society with evidence of domestic life, trade networks, agriculture, and ceremonial practices. Yet for all that is known, the ingenuity of Bandelier continues to inspire awe. How did these communities transport and shape massive stones for walls, staircases, and terraces? How were cliff dwellings carved so precisely, often high above canyon floors, without the benefit of modern scaffolding or cranes? The practical challenges alone are formidable, and they hint at advanced engineering, planning, and knowledge that remains astonishing even today. The cliff-face dwellings of Bandelier are not merely practical. They suggest a sophisticated social and cultural vision. The integration of natural caves with man-made structures speaks to a philosophy of living in harmony with the land while asserting human presence. Some rooms were clearly designed for communal gatherings or ceremonial use, while others likely served as domestic spaces. Kivas, circular subterranean chambers, evoke ritual practice, possibly connected to cosmological observation, seasonal cycles, or religious rites. Could the placement of these ceremonial spaces relative to the sun, moon, or surrounding landscape indicate astronomical knowledge woven into the very architecture? Transportation and construction at Bandelier highlight human ingenuity. Stones, some weighing hundreds of kilograms, were quarried, shaped, and transported across uneven terrain. Adobe and mortar were used sparingly, yet many walls have endured centuries of weathering and seismic activity. Wooden beams, ladders, and support structures, though long decayed, would have been integral to construction and access. The combination of natural topography, precise carving, and structural engineering suggests not only technical skill but also meticulous planning and coordination. How was such knowledge disseminated among the community? Were construction techniques ritualized, passed down orally, or observed and refined through trial and error across generations? The cliff dwellings of Bandelier also provoke questions about visibility, defense, and symbolism. Perched high above canyon floors, many rooms are difficult to access, suggesting strategic positioning for protection against environmental threats or potential human conflict. Yet the choice of location may also carry symbolic meaning. An elevated position connects the community physically and spiritually to the sky, the surrounding mountains, and the broader landscape. Were these structures designed to convey status, cosmological alignment, or spiritual guardianship over the land? The duality of practical and symbolic purpose remains a source of intrigue. Inside the dwellings, the craftsmanship of the masonry and the careful carving of niches, steps, and storage spaces reflect a sophisticated understanding of space, function, and daily life. Evidence of grinding stones, hearths, and storage bins shows that these were not merely ceremonial spaces. They were homes, centers of production, and repositories of cultural memory. Yet, despite centuries of study, we are left to wonder how much of their architectural knowledge was codified in practice, and how much was intuitive, learned by observation and communal experience. The surrounding landscape reinforces the mystery. Bandelier is embedded in a region rich with volcanic tuff, canyons, and mesas. Yet, the choice of precise cliff faces and mesa edges raises questions. Why these particular locations? Was the selection driven solely by defensive or environmental considerations, or did ritual and observation play a role? Certain orientations hint at possible solar or lunar alignments. Some niches may have framed celestial events, casting shadow and light in meaningful ways at solstices or equinoxes. Could these dwellings themselves serve as an observatory, marking time, seasons, or celestial patterns? Modern attempts to replicate the construction techniques used at Bandelier underscore the scale of the achievement. Even with contemporary tools, carving rooms into cliff faces and erecting multi-level masonry structures without scaffolding or mechanization remains daunting. How did the ancestral Puebloans, using simple tools, ropes, and ingenuity, accomplish these feats? How much of the process was informed by empirical experimentation, communal knowledge, or cultural ritual? The methods of construction remain elusive, adding a layer of technical mystery to the already profound cultural enigma. Perhaps most compelling is the cultural resonance of Bandelier. These dwellings are more than stone and adobe. They are records of social organization, spiritual belief, and environmental adaptation. Every room, platform, and staircase reflects choices made by a community deeply connected to its environment and its cosmology. Yet so much remains invisible to us. The oral histories lost, the intentions of builders and occupants, the subtle meanings encoded in alignments, dimensions, and spatial relationships. What knowledge, ritual, or practical wisdom guided these decisions? How much of it was preserved through centuries of communal life, and how much vanished with the abandonment of the dwellings? As sunlight fades behind the mesas and shadows stretch across carved walls and terraced platforms, the Bandelier stone structures endure, silent but evocative. They speak of a culture capable of extraordinary technical skill, social cohesion, and spiritual imagination. Standing among these cliff dwellings, one senses both the permanence of stone and the fleeting nature of human endeavor, a juxtaposition that raises profound questions about ingenuity, knowledge, and purpose. And so, as the wind rustles through the canyon and light shifts across the red cliffs, Bandelier remains both a monument and a mystery. What inspired its creation, guided its construction, and gave meaning to its spaces? What knowledge, lost to time, enabled this community to blend architecture, landscape, and cosmology into an enduring legacy? The structures invite contemplation, leaving us with questions that endure. What secrets lie still hidden in the cliffs? And what does Bandelier tell us about the ingenuity of those who came before, building a world that is at once practical, spiritual, and impossible to replicate?